Just walk away. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
Okay, you know what? Hold on a second. Is everybody? Can everybody? Hold on. Let me just.
Did it start?
Yeah, we are live, but I'm having a feeling. Hello, everybody there? Can you guys hear me now? I think I fucked up, guys. That's okay. Can you guys hear me now? I think I had the audio off on the.
It looks like it's frozen. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's frozen.
They can't hear us.
They should be able to hear us now.
Rico.
It's not frozen, guys.
It looks like it's frozen. That's what they're saying. Yeah, I don't think it's working.
No, it says live. Video output is low. 3 watching.
Yeah, no, there's no volume or anything. And
desktop audio's on. Mic. Look.
Oh, I hear you now. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the mixer's,
we're good.
The mixer's on. They should. There's probably a lag. There's probably a bit of a lag.
They can't hear us.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
We're good.
No worries.
Things, we're good. All right, I'm gonna have to do that intro all over again, guys, because they didn't hear a damn thing, and I don't think it would have recorded either. So, all right. Sorry about that, guys. Again, this is a learning curve for me. I'm trying to figure out how to use this software. Yeah, it's coming along. Anyway, for everybody watching, I'm with Nick and I'm with John the other. I'll get them to introduce themselves in a minute because they just did, but you didn't hear it. We're going to talk about chicks in submarines, or chicks in cockpits, which me and Nick came up with, which is basically a term for females or the feminine invading masculine spaces. And those spaces don't necessarily have to be physical. They could be cultural, emotional, etc. And I want to tie that into the modern day hashtag #MeToo movement. I want to ask, are these two phenomena connected? Are they polar opposites? And I want to find out if, I want to ask the question, is this a learning curve? Culturally, are we going through a learning curve? Are we starting to see how men and women eventually we're going to live in harmony, everything will be fine? Or is this the beginning of the end? Is it a deconstruction? So, John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself again? Sorry about that. Nobody heard that because I had the audio off.
No problem. So I'm John. On YouTube, I'm John the other. My actual name is John Hembling. I run a MGTOW, topical YouTube channel. I used to write for a men's rights website before I parted company with them. And I am now working with the Lighthouse Project, which is a Canadian nonprofit focusing on helping people falsely accused, particularly of sex crimes.
All right. So John and I have known each other for a few years. In case anybody doesn't know, we kind of just went through the same YouTube circles back in the day. Men's rights, MGTOW, etc. Now, how I want to start this off for the listeners, and we can discuss some of these articles, is the beginning of Nick and I coming up with chicks on submarines. And that was an article, Nick, you shared with me, right? I got it from you.
Yeah, it was the Argentinian submarine sinking, I think, about a month ago, and it was the first female officer on a submarine. Ooh, and obviously they care more about her than the 50 other men that drowned on that ship.
Of course, and so the submarine going missing, making national news. And again, this is what we mean by chicks in cockpits or chicks in subs. Is it made national news because it was a woman on board, and it's gone. And when I showed you this article, John, I think you said it was like satire.
Yeah, I mean it read like an Onion article to me.
Yeah, because so I'll just for the listeners, I'll just quickly kind of read a bit. I'm not going to bother showing it live. I don't want to fuck any more of this up, but it just says one of the 44 crew members on board the Argentine submarine that is missing in the South Atlantic is Eliana Maria, and I can't pronounce her last name, Kroczyk, who came from a landlocked province to become the country's first female submarine officer. In a Facebook video posted in January by the Defense Ministry, this woman discussed her experience of being the first woman in a traditionally male space. She said that she aspired to become the commander of a Navy submarine one day. It says, she then goes on quoting, "If you think about being underwater, navigating, and being the only woman, it is strange, but at the same time, it is exciting and very challenging," she said in the video. "Any woman that wants to can do it." Needless to say, the submarine disappeared, all hands on deck missing.
Yeah, right. That is funny.
And I
mean, we shouldn't be laughing because this is properly a tragedy, but of course, absolutely, it's also hysterically funny.
Yeah, because of the irony, or almost it being satire when it comes to, again, chicks on subs. And the reason why this came up, me and Nick and I discussed it earlier, is because it was his father who said, "Well, that's what happens when you
put women on submarines." Yeah. now, I think his exact words. "Now we know. Don't let women on submarines."
Absolutely.
That was kind of the way he said it.
And the thing is, like I said, you can't help but wonder, like, what the hell happened? I mean, was that a factor?
Well, how long? I mean, no, I doubt anybody can answer this, but so I ask rhetorically, how long had that particular submarine been commissioned before it got a female crewman?
It was old. It was an old ship.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was diesel powered. I mean, which is kind of like a relic now these days. But also, you need to understand, it is very rare for a submarine to sink. I mean, there's only been a handful of cases post World War II of submarine sinking.
and not just sunk, it's gone. Like
It's missing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it just disappeared. They don't know what happened to it. It's got to be a frightening concept. And I want to tie that into another article here that came up. I think I noticed it on Twitter. And this one is from Forbes, and it says pilots fired for fight that left cockpit empty. Okay, and it says 2 pilots for Jet Airways, India's domestic and long-haul carrier, have been fired after a stunning incident that left the cockpit empty 2 times after a violent confrontation on a flight from London to Mumbai on New Year's Day. The soap opera-worthy story began when a female captain left the flight deck in tears during the cruise phase. She had been slapped by a male captain who was serving as a co-pilot on the flight, reports say. As she stood in the galley sobbing, flight attendants sought to comfort her while also urging her to return to the flight deck, according to account in the Times of India. Quoting, the co-pilot also kept buzzing, calling from the intercom in the cockpit, the crew, asking them to send the second pilot back, the newspaper reported. So, summarizing, a male and a female are in the cockpit, they get in a fight, the man slaps the woman, and the pilot leaves and goes crying down.
Mind you, she was the pilot.
She was the pilot.
Guy was the he was the co-pilot.
Mm-hmm. She was the pilot.
Right. Right. So first, we don't know what their ethnicity was.
No.
Okay, that's number one. Right. And again, even though it says it's an Indian jetliner, the pilots are from all over the globe. Usually, it's white people that are pilots. Usually, like 8 out of 10 times, it's white people. Mm-hmm. But we also need to understand that she must have been doing something really wrong, because usually the co-pilot is subservient. Mm-hmm. And has to obey the pilot's orders, mm-hmm. right? So this goes back to a little bit what we were discussing with fragging in Vietnam, when we used to frag the commissioned officer, because the commissioned officer would get the unlisted men into a lot of hot water. So again, maybe she was doing something that's very, not to code for being a pilot.
Well, go ahead, John.
I don't want to jump to conclusions and go, oh, the woman is an idiot here, because we really don't know what happened in that cockpit, right? Like, sure, okay, she left after she got slapped in the face. You just had, as you might imagine, some sort of an argument that culminates in one person slapping the other. You might say, well, walking out of the cockpit at that point, you shouldn't have done that, even if you got slapped because you're the pilot, right? Mm-hmm. But we also don't know what happened in there. We don't know could they've been in there for hours with some sort of weird sexual tension building or what. So until there's like a release of maybe a voice recorder in the cockpit or something, and I have to assume that would be present, this being the current year and the technological state of affairs that we're in now. It's easy to go, oh, well, the girl is a dingbat, but we don't know. The guy, an Air India pilot, might have been he might have been completely unable to deal with the fact that his superior officer was a woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very possible.
Well. Here's the thing: if the man was at fault, let's just hypothetically think that if the man was at fault, I think we would have been able to see the audio box recording, because it would have been an easy way of them releasing, look, it's men's fault, look at this recording, it was a Me Too situation, going by this audio recording of what happened in the cockpit. We will not see this recording or read the transcript because I assume she did something wrong.
Well,
maybe.
Also keep in mind how hyper gynocentric India is. That's it's a horrible place for men.
Yeah, I have dealt with a couple of guys there who are being falsely accused in Canada, and the level of assumption, the expectations in that culture are radically different than ours, to the degree that you just have to sort of adjust your thinking that you're on a whole different planet now. So yeah, what went on in that cockpit might be something that we find totally ridiculous, but that makes sense. You know, well, of course this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, we don't want to jump to conclusions because we don't know the full story. But I will tell you this: a statistical fact that majority of Navy pilot accidents is women crashing the airplanes, not the men.
Yeah.
Little known fact that women crash a lot of jet fighters. You know, and you can see it with the way they drive. Again, it's this me mentality. When they drive their car, they'll cut you off. They'll use that blinker. So you know, again, we don't really know what happened in that situation, but it goes to show you would that happen if it was two men in the sitting side by side with how many lives? It was 300 people on that plane. It wasn't some little private jet. It wasn't like one of Trump's private jets or something like that. We're talking 300 lives. You're putting 300 lives in danger, and you're crying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it just doesn't seem. It
it's a
seems weird.
little, it's pretty strange. And also the guy, the co-pilot, he also left the.
Oh yeah, he was totally wrong doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, what we had was a huge drama. And again, like you have to, as people, as men who we are, and the circles we run in, the information that we dig through, we have to wonder. We have to think to ourselves: was the woman the cause of
What
this?
went wrong?
Yeah. What was the woman at some? Was her presence in some way a catalyst for what did go wrong? You understand?
yeah, yeah. You have to kind of. There has to be some element to that, otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if we go back again to the submarine thing, I mean, we can't just. It's a little ridiculous to say.
AM, you're breaking up a little bit. You sound like a robot.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little bit. Not as bad as last week, but you're breaking up. John, do you hear him okay?
Yeah, he's a little choppy.
Hello?
A little choppy.
Hello? Hello?
No,
Yeah, we can hear you, but you're just a bit.
you're a bit choppy.
Impressed.
Okay. Go ahead and talk, and I'll try and fix my mic.
Okay, cool. So, John, I just recently got to view your videos. So you are a men's rights activist. Obviously, you're pretty deep into it.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an MRA. I used to be that, and I.
Check. Guys, now I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Guys. Fuck.
stop the streaming, and we're going to start it again. Streaming, connecting. How come I'm not getting...
Now, talk, guys.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
The mix is coming through again. For some reason, what happened was I muted myself, and I took out my headset, and when I plugged it back in, the mixer stopped picking up the desktop audio. But it should now. We should be going. Good.
Okay. So I'll kind of try to finish my thought that we were having before we got cut off there.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. So everyone hears us.
Yeah, so I used to have a very activist mindset, and I became aware, I realized that this is not an issue of getting people aware of these issues. Of course they know it. They don't care. It doesn't matter. So if you're going to care about that, let that be something that drives you in your life. There is no changing the public's mind. There is only changing your immediate surroundings, your circle of contacts and friends and workmates and all that stuff. So it's your activism starts with yourself, right? I mean, if you call MGTOW a form of activism, I guess it is, but it's not to change anybody else's mind. It's only to make life palatable to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
So you've definitely made the transfer to more, like, obviously you sympathize with the men's rights activists, but you realize that in a lot of ways that it's futile, and in a lot of it's in vain, and the best course of action is going MGTOW.
Well, one of the things I noticed kind of when I made that transition was a few years ago, is you look at sort of the Google search results and the amount of traffic that the two different camps get, the amount of attention they get. And when the YouTube MGTOW phenomenon really became a kind of a big noise, as it was a few years ago, that was when you started to see a lot of change happening, or at least on the surface of public acknowledgement of some of these issues. And why was that? It's because if you're a men's rights guy, what are you doing? You're trying to negotiate with the public, or with the individual members of the public, from a position of you're doing a job, you're driving a truck, you're being an electrician or whatever, and every other man in the world is doing their little drive a truck, or keep the lights turned on, or keep the sewers flowing, and all this stuff. And you're at the same time saying, we want men to be treated fairly in the family courts, or we want there to be some addressing at a level of public policy of male homelessness or suicide. But all you're doing is pleading. There is no negotiation if you don't have power. If you're not either offering an incentive or threatening to take something away, then you're just pleading, and that's not a negotiation. And of course you're going to be mocked.
You're not supposed to negotiate with terrorists.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get into that hyperbolic language, but like when you're let's reduce this down to like two actual individual people, and it's an employer and an employee, right? The employee says, "Well, I would like a raise, or I would like a longer break, or something like that," and the employer says, "Well, no." And then the employee goes, well, okay. And then he goes back to work and continues doing his job exactly as he has before, maybe with a reduction in pay. Well, unless you're threatening to take away something like the work that you're doing, or you're offering something such as, well, I'll come in earlier, or I'll, go to night school and pick up a new skill and I'll be more valuable. There's no negotiation without either a carrot or a stick. And the men's rights movement is trying to negotiate with neither anything to offer nor with a stick. So that's why the public is fully aware of all these issues and doesn't care, because men are still going to go on the job and die.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why I was always very adamant back in the day about keeping women, again, this is masculine spaces, keeping women out of them, especially when it comes to MGTOW circles, because honestly, MGTOW is kind of like a retreat. Like, it's been a slow retreat. Like, okay, we can't be there. Let's keep let's go over here. We can't be there. It's this slow retreat that men have done until they've been backed into a corner. And now it's like, okay, I'm MGTOW. This is it. This is where I draw the line. And
well, yeah, one of the things that I think I probably part company a little bit from at least some guys in the MGTOW world is I don't see MGTOW as a retreat. Now, clearly, you're going to withdraw yourself from some elements of public life, like, and I've gotten more radical recently due to the whole, Me Too,
yeah, Time's
Up business. For example, if I'm in a store buying something and the shop attendant is female, comes over to help me. Now, I know that's a joke already. But,
yeah, man.
Because they don't come and help you. That's like, if there's a male store attendant, they'll come and help you, but the female ones don't.
They'll help you, right?
Yeah, right. But like, if I have to ask a store attendant for help finding, I don't know, a specialized piece of electronics or whatever it is I'm trying to do, I will not talk to the female store attendant.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's a waste of my time. And it's now a danger. It's been made a danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, for the people listening who are not aware of sort of the Mike Pence rule and all the sort of subsidiary social adjustments, the Me Too movement and the Time's Up one and whatever they call it after this is gleeful, is a movement that is gleeful and taking delight in the power to destroy lives and careers over trifles, over nothing.
Yeah, and it's retroactive, like you said before.
Yeah,
like
it
could have happened fucking 20 years ago.
Try defending. Well, let's take something that's not a sexual crime, that's just a regular offense. I say that I am. Broke into my house and stole my bike in 1984. Prove you didn't. Prove you didn't.
Exactly. Exactly, man. It's fucking ridiculous. But I mean, again, going into how chicks in submarines or chicks in cockpits. One of the things I always prided myself on as being a MGTOW person is being very strict in keeping women out of MGTOW circles. Like, don't have them in. Don't bring them in. They're not necessary. Keep this a male space. And I think that's important because, again, I want to reference this final article within the series that I wanted to start with, which states unintended consequences of sexual harassment scandals. And this one is talking about how women are suffering from this sort of mashup of men and women in a single space and the whole concept of false allegations. I want to read a bit of it. It says, in Silicon Valley, some male investors have declined one-on meetings with women or rescheduled them from restaurants to conference rooms. On Wall Street, certain senior men have tried to avoid closed-door meetings with junior women. And in TV news, some male executives have scrupulously minded their words in conversations with female talent. In interviews, the men describe a heightened caution because of recent sexual harassment cases, and they worry that one accusation or misunderstood comment could end their careers. But their actions affect women's careers also, potentially depriving them of the kind of relationships that lead to promotions or investments. Okay, so that's the first two paragraphs. That's enough. And basically what it's saying is, again, the man and the woman in the cockpit, they got in a fight. The woman on the submarine also. But here we have, in Silicon Valley, in boardrooms, men are saying, I'm not going to give you the time of day until I'm pretty sure it's safe to do so. And therefore, the women suffer.
Well, it's like, what did you think was going to happen?
You're not. There's no winning. There's no winning the battle. Anything you do is wrong.
Yeah, and of course, again, this is like it's like a parody almost. It's like we're watching a goddamn cartoon unfold in front of our eyes, man. It's insane. And
it's like a Benny Hill episode, isn't it?
Yes, or Monty Python or something. It's insane, man. So what we're dealing with here, and again, I want to kind of, and I'll throw this to Nick first. Is when I brought this concept up before we went live, I said to Nick, Nick, I want to try to understand how it's connected, how chicks in cockpits is connected to hashtag Me Too. And Nick, you said they're polar opposites. Explain that.
Well, feminism works against feminism, right? So what you've essentially done, and I mentioned this story to you in I think maybe 1 or 2 chats ago, that my cousin's husband is a regional manager for a very large corporation, and behind closed doors, the heads, including HR, the heads of the corporation, said, "That's it. No more hiring women. We can't have any of this involved anymore. You can bring them in for an interview, but do not hire them because of the state of affairs and what's happening, what's being shouted at you." Again, the megaphone behind you with the media and the situation is that, again, feminism's working against feminism. Now you can't get hired because we're afraid of hiring you, causing, filing a lawsuit against the corporation, filing a lawsuit against our employees. Can't have it.
But I mean,
so essentially, it's feminism is working against feminism.
Yeah, it becomes its own parody. Yes, but I mean, is the concept that, okay, all these women are starting to be pushed into these traditionally male-dominated fields, areas, professions, cultures, ideas, groups, etc. They're being pushed, and they're being forcefully pushed by feminism. I think we can agree on that. And is hashtag Me Too a result of that?
I think it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
And it comes from an assumption, kind of a childish and not a very mature assumption, but that is based in truth. And that's that women are innately desirable within our society. Because what are they? They're the gatekeepers of reproduction at the biological level, and at a social level, they're the gatekeepers of men's reputations. So if you're in the blue pill world, let's not get too terminology heavy here, but if you are a normal thinker, your social standing in your friends group, in your family group, in your professional group depends in large part on, is the woman in your life happy? Because if she's not, you're a bad guy. Or, if you're not attached into a romantic thing like marriage or girlfriend, your sister or maybe your mother. Her happiness is an indicator of, are you doing the right thing? And this whole idea of the gentleman and the good man, these are all reflections on the female valuation of, male behavior, male conduct, utility, the ability to provide resources. And you can look at this as a very jaundiced eye of the man is just reduced to a walking bank machine or dispenser of utility or something like that. But this is the social dynamic.
Yeah.
And so women have this long built-in assumption of their own, like, irretrievable. You can never get rid of that value because it's permanent, right? And so they have traded on it by becoming more and more demanding of, well, we want to be treated like men, but don't treat me like a man in the sense that you require me to meet those standards, but you must give me the respect of a man in a workplace of a high status. But also you have to treat me with the deference of the fragile flower mother figure. And you just keep piling more and more expectation on. And they have reached a point now with the Me Too where I point my magic finger at you and your career is over. And by the way, I love pointing my finger. It's the most fun thing in the world for me to do. Well, at some point, you're just like, I can't work with this anymore. You keep throwing hand grenades into my cockpit.
Yeah.
Right.
Or my submarine.
Yeah.
Christ. And this is we got to remember, though, there's another danger here. There's another danger for men. And again, this ties in with the Me Too movement, but it's not uncommon, and I think this goes into the Hollywood aspect, and you touched on it earlier, John, about how these women, a lot of these women that are honest with themselves, they use their sex to move up.
Of course they do.
They use their sex to move up in Hollywood, in the office, etc. That woman on the submarine, how did she become an officer? Who knows? Maybe she gave every one of them a head that were, Who knows? But
or you know what? Maybe she tried as hard as she possibly could, and out of all the female candidates, she was the best. But at the same time, her government and her military were under enormous international and internal pressure to put some women into some positions, and so they had to right. So yeah, okay, maybe she did really the best she could, but she wasn't raised male. She wasn't raised where you succeed or you die. She was raised in a different way. So she's got different built-in expectations, and you know, or maybe she was just an asshole. Like, we don't know. Right?
We don't know.
Maybe she was.
But what we do know is, yes, there is a pressure, and it's becoming more and more. What do they call it? What is the term? What is their feminist term for it?
Toxic masculinity or patriarchy.
No, to have women be represented the same as men. There's a fucking term.
Oh yeah, it's equity, I think.
Okay, yeah, there's maybe that's what it is, but there's that demand in almost every field now.
Yeah.
And when I introduced this stream and I mentioned how the feminine invading the masculine is not just physical spaces. We're talking about emotional, cultural, pop culture. It's being invaded. And for example, and I discussed this with Nick before, Kathleen Kennedy, who is the in charge of Star Wars for Disney, wearing a T-shirt says the Force is feminine, the Force is female, or whether the new director of The Last Jedi, Ryan, what's his name? Ryan, the fuck is his name? Ryan Johnson, maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, him tweeting out, I want a T-shirt that says, ask me about my female film agenda. I mean, you can't get any more fucking blatant than that.
No, of course, but I've said this before. There is this idea that every feminist believes, although most of them don't understand that because it's so deep, like it's so far buried under the foundations of feminism, is that femaleness, the simple, if you want to say the essence of being female, if you were to take a human and then divide the essence into male and female, which is a little metaphysical and woo-woo for me, but I'm just describing my understanding of it, is they actually think that femaleness is the light side, the positive side, the forward thinking and all the good parts of humanity, compassion and caring for children and helping each other and inventive, everything good comes out of the feminine element, and everything negative and regressive and bad, anger and subjugation and war and blah, 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 all the negative bad stuff is the masculine. And they look at sort of the human idea or the human spirit as these two yin and yang halves, which is why they, it gets manifested in political rhetoric. And when we say we need to have more women on boards of directors, well, you press them and you go, why? You'll get some vague stuff like, well, it's better and companies are more compassionate. They're not really able to articulate that very well, and they're grasping because what they're trying to express is this mystical idea of masculine being regressive, bad, angry, forceful, feminine being gentle, lovely, kind, and bright and sunny. And that's a religious belief that the entire feminist movement has forgotten is founded on a mysticism rather than a political or a psychological framework, although they use political and psychological language, because that's what you talk about when you want to sound like you're serious.
Yeah. Well, what about, I mean, can they lean towards biological excuses, like men are bigger and stronger? Like, is that what they're kind of leaning against when they say what everything bad is men?
No, it's a spiritual idea of like, if you were to take the concept of the human, the soul, the human soul, and everybody's got, like, in this cosmos, everybody's got an element of their soul that's, I don't know, maleness, and an element of their soul that's femaleness. And in men, obviously the maleness part is ascendant, and in women, the female part of their soul is, the part in charge, and that the female part is the good part, and the male part is the bad, regressive, violent, predatory, etc. Okay? Now I'm being pretty simplistic here, but this is a very subconsciously held idea. That's, you know, you're not going to learn this if you go to a gender studies course, although this idea underpins everything else they're saying. And that's why you have, like, well, we need to make the world's leaders more female, and we need to, you know, get more women into tech, because tech would be more compassionate if it were more women in it. That's, if you just analyze that in a straightforward manner, you're just like, what the hell are you even talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't make.
But when you look at this, that they're using these talking points to very poorly articulate what is a mystical belief, then it makes sense. And it also explains why you can't debunk anything that they say with data.
Because it's dogmatic.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you say that it's like feminism in a strict and like proper sense, that it could be defined as women who envy men's roles in the workforce and what it is they do as far as providing for society?
At a psychological level, I think there's certainly an element of that, because there's prestige in being a high achieving person in the workforce. If you are an engineer or a doctor or lawyer or anything that has sort of a high paycheck and, you know, a level of requisite skill to do. So even a chef, right, like a very accomplished chef, may or may not have actually ever gone to culinary school, but there's that prestige there. So that's something that's, well, I want that prestige too, right? Or you know, an accomplished software engineer who has maybe doesn't get the social recognition because, you know, the whole pocket protector tape on the glasses, you know, stereotype, but still a software engineer is above a lot of other businesses, a lot of other, you know, work roles, because of the level of necessary specialized knowledge that it takes to do that. You can't just walk into that job untrained. Right,
but unfortunately for women, men could give a flying fuck if they are doing those things. You know, I look at women, yo, great, you're an attorney. I look at the high-powered attorney, no different than the part-time waitress working at some, you know, beer garden. Like, her career and her wealth are, I mean, if she has money, obviously that's nice and everything, but for a guy, you don't admire women for their career choices. It's kind of rare.
Because men are not reproductively tuned to seek out financial or social high achievers. Correct. That's not what gets our motor running. But for women, that is what gets their motor running. Sure, I mean, women like a guy who looks like Chris Hemsworth or maybe Brad Pitt when he was younger. Sure, that's nice. But unless there is also the prestige and the financial power of one of those guys, just some bum who looks like Brad Pitt is really not going to turn anybody's crank, except for a very immature dingbat.
Yeah, yeah. You're drifting into some MGTOW talk of sexual marketplace values and what men and women are attracted to as opposites.
Yeah, and here this is where it ties into the Me Too stuff, because female sexuality is it's a commodity. It's a trading commodity. And I'm going to get in so much trouble here, but I don't, you know, I'm already a hated person.
Fuck it, you're on my channel. You can say whatever the fuck you want, man.
Yeah, he hasn't heard much of our content. We're pretty bad on this. I get in trouble live stream.
I get in trouble all the time, man. I'm fucking used to it.
Yeah, you send your letters of complaint to
just send them to my Twitter account once it's not banned anymore.
To JUSTINTRUD. How do you spell Trudeau? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But
anyway,
the female sexuality is socially upward climbing or financially upward climbing, because that's what women are attracted to. They're attracted to men of accomplishment, men of financial resource, or men who exhibit characteristics that are predictors for financial accomplishment or social accomplishment, right? So that's that's what female sexuality is keyed into. Now, obviously, yes, they like nice-looking guys too, but really, you put two good-looking guys together, the guy with more money is going to get more girls.
And with the Me Too, them using theirs go into that.
Well, that's the thing is, you have this movie and entertainment and TV industry where women come in trading on their sexual value to get access to either roles or, you know, producer spots, or, you know, they get cast, they get in because they look pretty, and the guy who's got the position to either hire people or direct people into interviews and give them recommendations, he's like, well, there's a trade happening here.
Yes. And let me just quickly add, and the trade that they use to get ahead is in strict competition with other females.
Of course. Yeah, because, you know, Harvey Weinstein is not looking at 3 female actresses in their 20s and a guy and going, I wonder if the guy will, you know, let me grab his butt. Mm-hmm. No, it's like the guy's got to prove it by acting or by dancing or singing or whatever the heck the role is, yeah. Right? But and I'm certainly not condemning women for this, because you play the cards you're given, man.
Absolutely.
And Hollywood works on trading on female beauty, female sexual, you know, whatever you call it, in exchange for access. And in fact, that's a big part of what sells the damn movie, TV show, whatever, to the audience. Show me a popular female singer that isn't shaking her booty, and I'll give you $100.
Yeah. Show me a homely one. Show me a overweight homely one.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's fine. But now in that exchange of, well, I'm going to shake my booty, or I'm going to let you grope me up, or maybe if you really give me a movie deal, we can go hang out in your hotel room. Mm. Sure, that happens. We're adults. You don't want to do that. Okay, don't do it then. Go into another damn profession. Yeah. Or make it on pure merit and just say no to Harvey Weinstein. But when you say yes, because that's the game that gets played and everybody knows it, and now 30 years later you want to say, oh, I was a victim. Well, are you giving the money back? Mm. Well, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Are you? Well.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm going on and on here.
Go ahead.
The whole Golden Globes thing with Queen Oprah presiding over this, and everybody's going to wear black because it's all in solidarity against female objectification. Oh, is it now? Is it? Because I saw a lot of plunging necklines and very high slit dresses.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of high heels that I could not walk in without a lot of practice. And why do you wear high heels? To make your calf muscles bulge and make your butt stick out. Mm-hmm. So please don't tell me this nonsense about we're wearing black in protest of female objectification, while the black dress you're wearing is the exact objectification that you're protesting against. I didn't see any female stars wearing a male-styled tuxedo tailored to a female frame. I didn't see that.
No. And again, this is the Monty Python that feminism creates, this sort of feedback loop it creates on itself. Somebody in the chats mentioned, when we were talking about when I mentioned that you don't see any homely overweight singers, someone mentioned Adele. Is she homely and overweight?
Well, Suzanne Boyle is.
She's a little heavy, but you know, she's not like grotesque. She's just not a skinny rail. I can think of a female homely and overweight singer, and it's what's her name? She was on Britain's Got Talent, and she was in her
Suzanne
Boyle.
Somebody mentioned
it. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned it.
And that's the only one. That's how rare that is. We can all name the one, can't we?
Yeah. The one. And I mean, Adele, if she's not that fat and she's not that ugly, I mean, she could also suck a really mean dick, you know?
Or the woman from Mamas and Papas who died eating, choked on a chicken bone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But very few. In other words,
very few.
Very few. But yeah, that is the commodity. Women's commodity is their
their sexuality.
Their sexuality, yeah, sexuality, and that includes not just their physical looks, but their ability to their reproductivity. And again, that's attached to age. Generally, we see youth as attached more to reproductivity because as a woman gets older, it's a lot harder to reproduce. So that's their commodity, right? That's their currency.
Well, it's a commodity, and it's a big one, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that's all women bring to the table, but let's not pretend that isn't a commodity that they do bring to the table and that they do use as a trade currency.
Yeah.
Because if we pretend that, we're not having an honest conversation. And while they're doing that trading, and we all have to pretend in the mainstream that's not a thing, and if you talk about it, you must surely hate women.
Yeah.
Because now the ones who traded and maybe their career is feeling a little droopy and wrinkled, they want to now pretend that, oh no, they were victimized when they got their launch into being a movie star or a rock star or a singing and dancing, whatever the kind of star they were. Oh no, they were victimized.
Yes.
Oh, please.
Well,
Nigerian, please.
Can I kind of dwell on a specific example from the sort of Me Too backlash here? I want to give the example which is brand new, and to me is very, very sad, was the accusations against Stan Lee, who I'm sure everybody knows who Stan Lee is. Yeah.
The thing is, it's grotesque now.
Yeah.
It's gone actually beyond Monty Python or Benny Hill, and it's actually become
horror.
Like
a psychosis.
We're watching. I hesitate to call anybody a sociopath who I haven't seen a diagnosis of, but it's a sociopathic thing that they're doing to dismember a 95-year-old old man in public. Who, and let's be honest, Stan Lee is a beloved public figure. He is as much loved as Mr. Rogers was in 1985. And he's 95 years old. His wife died a year ago. So he's on his way out. Let's be real, okay?
Yes. He's not going to last much longer.
Yeah, like, let's say he didn't have this horrendous pile on. What's he going to live? Another year? His wife just died. They were married for decades.
Yeah.
He's on the way out. And he's a 95-year-old man in a nursing home. And the nurses, the caretakers of this infirm old man,
yes,
instead of taking care of him, they're exploiting him in the most cynical and predatory way.
Yeah, and I want to point that out to anybody listening to make sure this is not a retroactive accusation. This isn't something they say he did, 30 years ago. They're saying that an old man who probably doesn't have all his wits about him. And again, like you said, just lost his wife. He's 95 years old. While giving him a sponge bath, he made a pass at them of some kind.
Yeah, and you know what? What if he did?
Yes.
What if, let's say he did.
Yeah.
He's a 95-year-old wrinkled stick of a man.
What kind of threat is he?
And he's going, oh, come here, and he grabs her boob or maybe her butt, okay? Now, you're a geriatric nurse, okay? You care for the geriatric.
And you probably see that all the time. You probably see it all the time.
Some 95-year-old man makes a 95-year-old man style grope at your butt. And he's like in a nursing home for the very wealthy. So you're getting some good coin. So are you going to go, oh, Mr. Lee, none of that now, and firmly and gently pat his hand away, or are you going to pick him up by the scruff of his scrawny 95-year-old neck and shake him like a terrier shaking a doll in public for your own enrichment and gratification? Because if you do that, you're a sick individual.
Yes.
Who should never be allowed anybody's aged relatives.
No. Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's very, very sad. And the exploitation of it is insane. And I just want to, on a side note, and just on a humorous note, one of the guys that kind of got me and Nick together, MGTOW Expat, he posted a link to an article about what happened to Stan Lee, and I replied to him by saying, in MGTOW, or not in MGTOW, I'm sorry, I said, in Islam, a woman's word is only 1/4 of a man's. Are you ready to become Muslim yet?
Yeah. The other thing is that the burning down of the bridge between men and women, which is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind that MGTOW guys are MGTOW and they burned that bridge themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But just in the general regular population who've never heard of MGTOW, this is the burning of the bridge of trust between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get it back easily. What you're going to have is a culture that has to adjust, because we still have to keep the lights turned on. We still have to keep manufacturing electric cars and designing faster computer chips and writing code for, you know, the stupid talking assistant on your laptop and everything else that we all have to keep still doing, and make sure the sewage doesn't pile up in our homes.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to protect the people that keep the machinery running. Otherwise, the machinery won't keep running.
Well,
and that means we're looking at a segregated society.
yes. Now think about, go back to the woman in the cockpit. How many more times is that going to happen before a plane crashes?
Right.
Well, you're a pilot. You're a passenger.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to start wanting to know if there's a female crewman in the cockpit?
Exactly.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
You are going to start asking that.
Yeah. And it might make your decisions on whether or not you want to fly on that use that airline.
Well, you're putting the ideology of feminism and liberalism and progressivism, whatever ism you want to throw in front of it, you're putting that in front of people's lives. Same reason why it's not a good idea to let people from, you know, Somalia into your country, because it's fair. It's fair and it's equal to allow the Somalian to live in Minnesota, when in fact you're now endangering the lives of the locals because of your ideology.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have this kind of, I shouldn't say we, within the left, there's this idea that every culture is of equal value,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a deeper idea that our concepts of, you know, what we assume to be fairness, our ideas of equality, our ideas of civil discourse, and, you know, how to get along with your neighbors without both of you pulling out handguns and all this stuff, that didn't just happen in my lifetime or yours. And it didn't just happen in my grandpa's lifetime. We have a society that stuff is functional, that I can have a neighbor who, you know, may have much more financial wealth than I do, or maybe I have much more, and we can live next to each other and have this, never have to state the understanding that my Harley that I park in my driveway, he doesn't get to hijack it, and I know he won't because he's my neighbor. Well, that comes from like 1,000 years of our culture to get there.
Cultural trust.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's cultural. That didn't just happen because I was raised in a nice house. That's because I'm from a culture
Yes.
that has 1,000 years of legacy to it. Now, obviously, Canada doesn't have 1,000 years, but obviously I'm extending down into, you know, the European culture from which my ancient progenitors spawned, if you want to get all metaphorical about it.
Yeah.
But a guy from Somalia doesn't have that legacy. He has a different legacy. And we don't seem to grasp that legacy is actually important if you expect someone to behave within the boundaries of your system. So a couple of things are going to happen, or a couple of different options as I see it. One is we have to create a class of citizen, and I'm just using the terminology, we'll call it something else, that these are like people who don't have the built-in civilization, as we understand it, right?
Right.
And I don't want to demean anybody here. It's at the core of human life is a human life.
You can demean all you want on this channel.
I want my ideas to be understood, though, and not have people stop thinking and just go into reactive rhetoric, right?
Well, that's hard to do, man. When you if you've got a feminist as your audience, or a leftist, it's hard to do.
The guy from Somalia, he can be my best friend, but if he doesn't have in his culture a legacy of all the stuff that led to that ability of these two neighbors to cooperate despite financial inequality between them, then to have some kind of societal adjustment to address that, so that we don't have the guy, you know, going Burko.
Okay.
The other
No,
the other possibility is we have to close our borders.
Yeah. Now this is leading into kind of the big question I had at the beginning, and I'm going to present it again right now, and I'm kind of curious to anybody listening what they have to think about it as well. But even though it kind of leans a little bit more in the direction of the genders or the sexes, but it does transcend into culture as well. But again, I'll ask the question. I'll try to phrase it as best I can. Seeing what we're seeing now, is this invasion? And again, we can compare the feminist invasion into masculine spaces, maybe as a parallel to other cultures, invading other cultures as we see today. Is this invasion of the feminine into the masculine realm? Is this a learning curve? There's just a hump we need to get over? We need to get our training wheels off before we get going, before we get the ball rolling, and we're headed towards this what would you bliss between the genders and sexes? Or are we witnessing a deconstruction of a very solid foundation that we've had for a long time? That's the question.
We're seeing a deconstruction of a very solid foundation, and it's going to have catastrophic consequences. Now, I think as a civilization, we will obviously recover, but we're going to have to change some things. And we're not going to change masculinity because that's a biological factor. What we're going to have to change are our social institutions to accommodate we have this new acceptability of basically completely psychopathic behavior by a certain class of the society. So you have to have walls. You have to separate what you need to keep the society functioning from the I'll call them the chattering class.
So what wall can we build to keep out the borderline sociopathic feminists and leftists? What wall can you build to keep them out?
One of the things is you're going to see probably a whole set of undocumented standards in terms of who gets a job interview, who doesn't get a job interview, sort of who's let into secure or important roles in an engineering firm, or
it could be government, the military.
Yeah, you're going to have a breakdown of the rule of law in terms of having one set of laws that govern everybody. That'll still be there in its surface presentation, but the way the society is actually going to run is going to be all these layered sets of hidden rules that are in violation of the official laws, because you can't make it run otherwise, right? You talk about all these guys in corporations saying, yeah, give the women interviews, but just don't hire them into this department because I don't want a hand grenade in my office, metaphorically speaking. That's going to happen more and more, that there are going to be unspoken exclusions of classes of people, because what we've done is we've broken down our standards so that now we have people creating mayhem within larger systems, within corporations, within the entertainment industry, within the software industry, in the command structure of a submarine that disappeared,
And I'd like to put forward, and this came up in the chats as well, but it's something that it's an idea that is extreme within I guess MGTOW circles. It's extreme to most people that hear it, but what you're talking about, John, is us trying to relearn how to behave with one another. And I can see that as a wall being built, but maybe there's a wall we need to tear down, and maybe that's and again, this is the extreme. Maybe we need to take away some of the rights we've given women.
Well,
never going to happen.
How do you do that?
Exactly. How do you fucking do it?
Women are the majority of the voters.
Yeah.
And look, they control.
We open.
But that might be Canada. American women are not the majority of voters in this country.
That's the myth you hear, though. But
yeah, no, women don't know anything about politics.
Well,
at least American women don't.
Well, I don't say that they know more, but because of the way men and women work in terms of who's working more hours and who has more flexibility, there are more female voters than male voters. Not necessarily more better informed, but in terms of raw numbers going to the polls, it's more women.
You know,
I'm gonna look that up.
I think we opened a Pandora's box in Western Europe and in America back, over 100 years ago when we caved to a bunch of wealthy screaming banshees that they wanted to vote without consequence. And we can't close that box anymore. And maybe one of our saving graces is that even though that lunacy has floated across the Atlantic, it's having trouble floating across the Pacific. It's running into...
Yeah, the Chinese are not having any of that.
The Chinese, the Japanese, a lot of the Asian countries are just like, whoa, they're putting a stop to that. So that might be something.
Well, they're smart enough to learn from somebody else's mistake.
It's about dead even in America. It's back and forth as far as age groups go and everything. But I do want to make a point that women that are much older in America tend to vote more to the moderate right than to the left. Young women obviously vote left.
Young people, I think.
Yeah, young people in general, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if this is true, I have heard that the generation of, I guess, high school students coming up behind sort of what you would call the millennials are arguably the more conservative, like the most conservative generation there's been in a very long time.
That's correct, and that's because of immigration. The younger generation doesn't want to see brown people in their classroom, and it's versus my generation. I'm considered a millennial, and I guess Chris is in your generation. We were kind of okay. There's a Korean kid in the class. All right, there's one. That's okay. Now you have 4 or 5 in a group of 20, and then there's another group of people that you don't really recognize, and God only knows what country they're from. You start to feel very uncomfortable.
Well, I went to school in Vancouver, and it was about half Asian for pretty much.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a major problem.
But they weren't like Asian. They were just a bunch of brown kids who basically acted the same as us.
Well, you're probably talking about second, third generation Chinese, Koreans that were born in Canada.
Yeah,
that's totally different.
Koreans, Japanese, Chinese. Yeah, I mean they still got the Asian culture keeps its culture. They keep their language and they keep a lot of their cultural elements, but their attitudes are very Western.
Yes,
at least in my admittedly limited experience.
Yeah,
well, you can extend that to me being an Italian American. I still have all the things of being Italian, but at the same time, I got my my tinfoil hat on and watching Alex Jones.
Yeah,
they're coming for you, brother. Get your guns. Where's your Bible? The blue helmets are coming.
The black helicopters have been spotted.
They're putting estrogen in the water.
It's turning the frogs gay.
Yeah, right. So yeah, but and I've mentioned this to AM, and I met MGTOW expat friend while I was over in Cambodia, and we were getting along. We were having a good time. Now, mind you, MGTOW expat was from Wisconsin, and his buddy was from Texas. And we're getting along. We're banging back and forth ideas on conservative values and blah blah blah. And then his buddy leans in and goes, "You're not a Catholic now, are you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go. Now you got to ruin the whole thing. You got to bring up they don't see Christianity through the eyes we do." And it kind of so there's a fragmentation. Again, where even though I'm an Italian American and obviously I vote Republican, here it's like me going to the KKK and being like, "Hey, I want to join you guys," and they're like, "What the fuck? You're an Italian. Get the fuck out of here." I'm like, "No, come on, I'm one of you." Kind of like the Dave Chappelle episode where he's black and he doesn't know he's black. He doesn't know he's black. It's kind of like that situation.
Yeah,
right. So it's a little bit of that type of situation, and that goes on in America. I can't really say that will be the same for Canada, but we're definitely segregated much more into multi-ethnic groups in the United States.
Yeah, I actually think that's arguably a healthier way to do it than just coming this bland, you know, melted in thing.
Well, naturally, I think in the United States, if you look at its history, it did. People, if you went, I mean, New York in the past, it was always segregated into neighborhoods. I mean,
yeah, well, it still is.
it still is,
I was
yeah.
on the train a couple of weeks ago, and these two fucking loudmouth black dudes are being really obnoxious. And one of them said something about being white or whatever, and I just looked at him. I'm like, white? What? You looking at me being white? And then he looks at me. Oh, that's right. You Sicilian? You're the nigger too, man. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Don't be fucking calling me white, you know. So
It's like having a get out of jail free card, man.
well, I get to play minority and victim card, and I get to complain about white privilege all in the same. So I get to be a little bit. It's a little bit different for me. So I get to be a fly on the wall with the situation.
Yeah,
You know.
it gets if they can't see you though, if they don't know what you look like, they'll assume you're white.
Well, correct, naturally, but then they see my father, who looks like a filthy Puerto Rican, and my father's been yelled at, you know, ethnic slurs, fuck you, you dirty spick, and my dad's like, okay, I'm a spick today, all right, tomorrow I'm a Russian, God only knows what else people are going to be hurling at me, you know? But this is also the dangers of a multi-ethnic society, is that, again, you're unable to point to who the enemy is. And I discussed this with AM's brother a couple chats ago, where when you start importing so many different groups of people, I mean, I had to do, I had a real estate job yesterday, actually, and there's all these people from Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan. And they converted to Judaism when they came to America, thinking if we converted to Judaism, we'll get high-paying jobs or something. When in fact the American Jews are like, who the fuck are these people converting to our religion, thinking we're going to give them jobs and shit, you know? So they get stuck being doing jobs that are like barbershops and painters and things like that.
Well, I mean, that's how it goes for any first-generation immigrants, though. So.
Well, there's your learning curve for first-generation immigrants. I don't know if that translates very well to what's happening on a larger scale, though.
Well, the thing is, at least in Canada, we got our dingbat Prime Minister Zoolander.
I call him
I
call him the bastard son of Castro. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a good chance that he is.
Yeah.
And he seems to be, you know, he's this child of privilege, and he's never really had a real job. I mean, he was a drama teacher, so I guess that explains his ability to cry on command. And he was a snowboard instructor. Well, how the hell does that qualify you to run a nation state? Well, it doesn't, does it? So he's a dingbatted, pea-brained, inexperienced, stupid and immature puppet, completely in the control of his handlers. So, you know, if you have an embedded standing government, the civil service, the career bureaucrats, they're going to run you like you're a prize cow.
Yeah.
While he says all this flowery sounding stuff and takes 100, you know, selfies a day like he's a teenage girl, that is not a head of state. What you have is a highly pliable Muppet little puppet man, and I think a lot of people are looking at him as that and seeing his immigration policies as this globalist. And here I go, I'm going to go Alex Jones on you. This idea that we should eliminate borders, have this one sort of unifying world, you know, civilization where there's no division between a Canadian and an American and a European and a North African and a South African and a, you know, Somalian and
We're
what
all
have
one
you.
of the same. It's one world. One world, John. Embrace the Somalian. He's one just like you. His blood is red also.
Yeah.
And he's the captain now.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
and you have the kind of the George Soros open society ideology coming from the political left now, and the cost is, of course, the destruction of, you know, your economy when you bring in too many immigrants before you can actually employ them in a productive way. You don't acclimate them to the values of your culture, so you get little pockets of the culture that they fled from forming, and you have friction between guys who have the standard of behavior of an Islamic world where women were, wearing veils and burqas and whatever other modesty coverings, and then you have these Canadian 13 and 14-year-old girls who've never heard of any such thing and want to run around in bikinis. You have problems. And there seems to be no awareness on the part of the policymakers to accommodate this, except for just don't put it in the news and hopefully the problem will go away.
It's a stretch to me to say they have no awareness. I mean,
the thing is, their kids have to live in this country too. So are they really that, like, are they so self-destructive?
I don't know, man. I mean, it would be hard to say they have no awareness. I mean, they could be part of a problem, but then again, go into post-secondary education and what's happening in the schools, especially in Canada. Teachers,
yeah, I mean,
how does a professor end up with a mind like that?
Dude, I wish I could. I guess you're in a bubble, right? You're working for a public sector union. You're in the academic bubble already, even if you are in an employment situation where there's competition between professors for, perform or get out. So you're in this little protected bubble of the university campus where it's not really competitive in the free market sense. Plus you're protected in your employment because you're part of a big federal union. So you don't really compete on the basis of pure merit the way someone in the private sector does. And you got these, intellectuals crawling up their own butts with their stupid theories, trying to pretend that they have the rigor of the physical sciences because that's where the glamour is. But
John, the thing is that these intellectuals, such as Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris, even Jordan Peterson for that matter, these are the new priests. These are the high priests. These are our prophets now. Not so much, what it was in the past, where it was the Pope or, that Archbishop of the Catholic Church or what have you. These are the new high priests, and so is the media for that matter. So whatever they say is kind of the rule of law. That's what's happened.
Well, I think it's more physical and subtle than that. Is that the people coming out of the universities go into government and make law? Oh,
yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
so it's not like everybody just listens to Jordan Peterson or Noam Chomsky and goes, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Yeah, well,
but the students coming out of these
they learn from them. Well, they learn more from Noam Chomsky. And the other end, the end side of that argument is that you have people that are, men that are CEOs of conglomerates, multinational corporations, also gaining positions of power where they pass laws, become lobbyists on behalf of their stakeholders, and they switch in and out from being CEOs and positions of power in government.
Yeah. It's kind of,
which was not what, at least that was not supposed to be what the founding fathers had envisioned. They wanted usually some like a simple guy who, again, a normal laborer or something. He would go into politics for 4 or 5 years, then step down. The concept of a career politician was not supposed to ferment to what it is today, where you have Chuck Schumer, who's going on 25 years. 1998, I think. Yeah. So 20 years of him being a senator of New York. He's supposed to step down and go back into a regular working field, not stay there and get kickbacks.
Yeah. Well, the university also was not supposed to be the controller of all of the accredited industries. So if you want to get a law degree, or if you want to be an engineer, or you want to be a doctor, or a civil engineer, anything that there is a professional trade certification, not like construction trades, but the intellectual trades, right? The university controls that. And if you want to work in those fields, with a few very notable exceptions, you have to go through that university system, which makes the university fundamentally into a kind of church.
It's a monopoly, man.
Yeah. And it's got I think we're going to see a devaluation of the university degree as a ticket for employment, because you have people coming out of the universities now. The mission is no longer to curate the society, because that used to be the mission of the university, to curate the values and the intellectual knowledge base of your society. Now it seems that the university's mission is
indoctrinate,
to foment revolutionaries who are to tear down the society.
Absolutely.
And that's not that's not a functional. It's like your engine is going to blow up the rest of your car.
Right, now I agree with you with that. And here's the one thing I don't see coming, though, is, okay, they're the little foot soldiers. They're the little Khmer Rouge running around, you know, acting like little animals. Antifa and all these other factions. Again, and they're a very small, minute portion, at least in the United States, that scream and yell these type of things. But the problem is that, first of all, it's usually gays, minorities, women, and cucks, men that lack some type of masculine type of character. They don't have the ability to fight. They don't know how to shoot a gun. They don't know how to do any of these type of things. The only way that they can get these type of things is if they get into government and then pass laws and tell the cops to go and shoot you. And this is why I don't like Blue Lives Matter, and that was a topic for another day, because now you're giving them arms. The arms is now the state. Who's the state? Again, the police. So if it was just a confrontation, like in a riot, they would get bulldozed. They would stand no chance against a blue-collar, working-class guys, whether they're white, black, or what have you. These type of men will not tolerate it. So this is the danger, is that they are getting positions in government. These weaklings, parasites.
Yeah. Of course, but I mean,
and you're not correcting the situation.
But see, I don't think we're going to recover the government as a functional unit. We're not going to recover the university as a functional unit. What we're going to do is replace it with something that works better.
Yeah. And
you're already seeing this to some degree with things like Bitcoin. We're seeing this with online university. If you wanted to get whatever kind of education you'd have to go to university for, do you really want to go on a campus?
No.
Or do you want to just do it online? Now, there's certainly value in being in a classroom because you get to directly ask the professor questions and so on. But does that benefit outweigh the risk now of being amongst these, like, piranha social justice warriors?
No. No. I mean, like, again, they've according to what you guys have both touched on, it seems that what we've seen a takeover within government and education, and it's the policymakers that go through these education systems, come out as policymakers, and they try to make these changes that, like you said, is going to blow up the entire vehicle. And
yeah, I don't think they understand that that's what's going to happen, though. They think they're going to get their little perfect utopia because that would be fair and lovely and nice, and every version of communism that's ever been tried isn't real communism because they weren't personally in charge of it.
Yeah, but that's what they've been indoctrinated to think, right? They believe that because they went through these systems of education that taught them that is the way it will function.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't.
No.
So. And they're not going to quit because their belief is fundamentally a religious one, not a rational one. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is a very few people at first are going to innovate new things. I should say at first, it's happening already. Mm-hmm. Online universities is extremely disruptive of the social power of the social justice warrior, because you can't bully someone into a political belief if they're taking the courses from a laptop in their apartment.
Yes.
You can't. Bitcoin isn't the answer in terms of the money system, but it's it's an experiment, mm-hmm. and it'll lead to other experiments. And if you have everybody or a significant fraction of people trading in a untraceable digital currency or whatever else somebody comes up with, because it's all wild blue yonder at this point, mm-hmm. Well, then you can't use your central banking system to shut down an enterprise or a company or a person.
Yeah. And another thing, too, I was just going to add is that a lot of the difficulties that people like you and I that sort of kind of carved out an identity in social media is that I think we might be witnessing the slow decline of Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as platforms.
Oh, yeah, I'm certain of that. Well, because they've begun censoring based on political ideology, and it's ubiquitous. Twitter does it. We've known they've done it for a long time, but now we have actual
admission
employees stating it publicly.
Yeah, because they're not afraid anymore. They've gone so far, they're just not afraid to say it anymore. I mean, like I said, and paralleling that with Me Too and feminism, they're not afraid to destroy your life. They're not afraid to publicly state kill all white males. They're just not afraid anymore. That's the world they've created for themselves, and it's unsustainable.
No, it isn't. But they also don't understand that once you set that standard, once it's known and acceptable to point to a group, not just white men, but just any group, go kill all of them.
Yeah.
Well, how long before the compass needle spins a little bit and it's one of them?
Yes. Yeah.
In the crosshairs, like. Just
that's what happened. That's what happened with most communist revolutions. Is that one was not far left enough, so they whacked him. It happened quite often in Africa during the Cold War. That this dictator got killed for another dictator. Well, that dictator wasn't far left enough. We got to kill him because now he's further to the left, and it kept going on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
No honor among thieves, my friends.
Well, the thing is, and this is, I'm going to get a little off topic here.
That's fine.
If your path to your utopia, which is the world of love and peace and happiness and free pork chops for everybody or whatever it is your favorite thing to eat, and you go, okay, well, everybody's going to love each other. There's going to be no violence. There's going to be no murder, and there's going to be nobody being mean to anybody, and there's going to be no sexual assault. And the way I'm going to get there to this total no violence, perfect unicorns and butterflies world is just bludgeon a few of the right people. Okay, so your tool to get there is bludgeoning people, or maybe silencing them, or jailing them, or disappearing them into a gulag, or whatever the actual articulation of your methodology is.
Like a blind culling.
If your method is a bludgeon, then where you're going is a world full of bludgeons.
Yeah.
You're not going to a peaceful world if the way to get there is a blunt object. It's impossible.
Yeah. Sort of like Antifa.
Yeah. They think they're going to create a peaceful world. Impossible. They could kill every single person who wasn't in their exact group and then replicate themselves across the world, and what you would have is a world full of people with bludgeons in their hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Antifa thinks they'll create peace punching one Nazi in the face at a time. Feminists think they'll create peace by destroying the public lives of one white male at a time. That's how they're going to achieve peace.
Yeah. What they'll achieve is a violent dystopia.
Yeah.
In which their children will be roasted on spits.
Well, do you think we're being conditioned to go in that direction? I mean, if you look at some things on TV, and David Icke pointed this out, that, Hunger Games and, Game of Thrones and there's a couple other movies that slipped my mind, that they're somewhat conditioning the masses for something like that in the future.
Well, come on, man. They admit social conditioning through pop culture nowadays. I already mentioned The Force is Female. I already mentioned the director of Star Wars saying, ask me about my feminist film agenda. This is stuff they're tweeting out and wearing on their T-shirts.
I don't think they need to condition anybody into accepting a more brutalized world, because history is an uninterrupted slaughterhouse. That's what it is. History is a non-stop orgy of human slaughter. So we don't need to be nudged. We're ready for that at any time.
I suppose it's kind of a dark way of saying it, but you're not wrong. Definitely not wrong.
Once in a while in history, people paused long enough to write some stuff down. The rest of the time, they're dying of rotting teeth, slaughtering each other, starving each other, murdering one another, stealing each other's land. That's the expanse of human history, and every single ethnicity did it to every other ethnicity.
But
to each other. It's because they were in two physically separate locations and couldn't.
Well, we made it this far. I mean, I can't, you know, there's a lot to be said about you know, the state of the Western world, and a lot a lot of what you're, you know, hey, one of the reasons why Trump won is a lot of people are terrified that what we have created now is going to be torn down.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Middle America, actually, I think it's not so much fear of losing the civilization. It's that the middle part of America got really tired of being told by the elite who run the media that they're worthless and stupid and their values are shit. And they said, yeah, well, guess what? There's more of us. So,
well, it's a small sect of people, usually from affluent cities, that dictate what the rest of the United States, and I guess maybe for rural Canada for that matter, what to think and do. And that's not the same value system that most of Americans have.
Yeah, most Americans are just regular people. But in the concentrated centers of population, which is the cities, you have a more liberal left agenda, and that's a product of you know, the affluence of living in a city. There's a
Education,
arguably higher standard of living because you're closer to utilities like power and, you know, large scale construction and everything like that.
you got to have money to go to school too, and they're doing a lot of the indoctrinating in those schools. So.
Well, this also ties into the behavioral sink. John, are you familiar with the behavioral sink?
No, run it past me.
It's a mice utopia experiment.
Oh yes, I know that one.
Yes. Yeah. So again, it's the cities that fuel this type of within a country or a society. You know,
You kind of cut out a bit there. Say it again.
That the cities are fueling this cannibalism within the society.
Yeah, I think that may be the case.
And we're nudging people to live in major cities. You're chasing the money, right? You want to have an education, so you have to go to Manhattan, San Francisco, Vancouver, what have you.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a movement. I don't know how big it is because it's really hard to tell, you know, in terms of relative size compared to the larger population. But there's kind of this getting out of the cities movement, getting away from, you know, dependence on what people think of as corrupt or failing systems, in terms of, you know, the homesteading movement and the off-grid guys and the preppers. And there's a whole bunch of different sort of flavors of that. And I actually view that as analogous to MGTOW in terms of, we don't like the way you're running this thing, we're going to just do it our own way.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And before, when I mentioned kind of just backing away, walking away, I mentioned this in the last chat, and I want to throw it by you, John, is that MGTOW is, I compared it more than anything to a discipline, because it really takes it really takes a lot of discipline to kind of shake off what you're instinctively want to fall into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you have a bunch of sort of social programming, and I don't want to get too, you know, conspiracy here, but you're acculturated to behave a certain way, to be protective towards women, or maybe to be gallant towards them, or to seek approval. So you do have to, you know, exercise some discipline and create new habits.
Yes.
But you don't. It's not like you're always fighting your instincts.
No.
You do that for a couple of years, and it just becomes your new behavioral habit.
Yeah, it's like changing a dietary habit or fasting. You know, you get used to it after a while. It becomes a different part of your nature for sure. But I think that
going back to people moving out of the cities, you have to understand that the environmentalist is now forcing people through regulations, zoning, and codes to go ahead and move into the city. So, you know, having a houseboat now in the state of New York is now almost impossible to have because it's not environmentally sound. So it's becoming The environmentalist movement has hijacked people's ability to live off the grid.
You can't have a houseboat in New York?
Yeah, it's like nearly impossible now. So that, you know, I see that again goes to the environmentalist agenda, which is part of sustainable development, which is what Agenda 21.
Well, and it's feminist is all part of that too.
Right.
Yeah, that's I wish I understood that, but I don't think that's really tenable, because if they tell you you can't live in a houseboat in New York and you want to live in a houseboat, you're just going to live in a houseboat somewhere else.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. I understand that, but some states don't have enough money for the state itself, meaning the government, to implement these type of rules and regulations. But it's slowly happening. It won't really happen so much in our lifetime, but you know, again, the more liberal states, democratic states, it's become quite difficult to get around these type of rules and regulations.
Well, maybe what the state is actually doing is trying to maintain relevance by imposing more and more rules to subconsciously become the thing that you can't leave, because when you are in a place where, you know, the living conditions are onerous in terms of you can't have a composting toilet, or you can't have a houseboat, or you can't have a wood stove, or, you know, etc. You can't have incandescent bulbs. You have to have LED bulbs or whatever. Mm-hmm. What you're motivating there is for people to find an alternative system of governance for their life than you. Yeah, because you've made yourself onerous.
Maybe flee.
And
you're encouraging people to flee. Yeah.
You're encouraging them to, well, maybe not physically flee, but to disengage from you as a service provider, because that's what the government actually is. Mm. And so when you start imposing restrictions like, oh no, you can't have a houseboat, it's not just that you can't have a, you know, this kind of toilet or this kind of wood stove or whatever. You're trying to constrain their ability to make a choice other than you. And that's ultimately a failing, that's a failing path, because at some point the cost of trying to maintain all of that exceeds the ability of your system to maintain it. You have to run the whole thing as a debt, and then you go back to becoming irrelevant again, and you can have people using an alternative system other than you.
Right, but this ties into the monetary policy in the West, that they're just going to keep printing money. And I think what the long-term agenda is that they'll continue. There's not going to be an economic collapse, and many people have disagreed with me on this. I don't think there'll be an economic collapse because they're not done with what it is they're trying to implement. As soon as they're done implementing it, then I think you'll see a change of guard as far as monetary policy goes. So they'll keep printing money, the state will keep getting bigger, and once they corral you to where they want you to be, then they'll close the doors and you know, keep you confined to what it is they're trying to do.
So is this all sort of part of the what I mentioned, what I brought up in the question? This is the social breakdown we're witnessing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a social breakdown when we look at government. It may be an economic breakdown, because you've got a Keynesian economic system where you have this really deep-seated belief that you can control this extremely large and extremely complex system, which is complex beyond any one individual's ability to understand, from a set of central, more or less, levers in terms of setting an interest rate and setting money supply and so on. And what you end up with is an increasingly ever more inefficient and broken system that you have to feed a greater and greater percentage of your capital into to keep it running.
Right.
Or run it at a greater and greater debt.
So a slave, essentially. This is neo-feudalism.
Yeah, but again, it's unsustainable. You'll keep some fraction of the people operating within that system, and you'll have a larger fraction of people operating within that system at a surface appearance level, but actually operating, you know, smaller interlocking competing economies. Because you cannot, other than by, you know, physically restraining every individual person, you can't actually control people.
Yeah.
on that much of a large scale.
Well, hey, John, just on a side note, and this is funny, you're mentioning this right now. So I just got a new job in Manhattan, dealing with co-ops and condos, and I'm very familiar with real estate. And what my boss has informed me is that the New York City has implemented a law that all homes, whether it be condos, co-ops, rental units, what have you, the room temperature has to be set at 65 degrees and above, and then at night it has to be 70 or 75 degrees above. How on earth is the government supposed to enforce that rule when you can't physically go into someone's home? I mean, it makes no sense. And you can see that with laws like that, what they're trying to do is they're actually trying to invade your privacy into your home.
They're gonna have digital thermostats, like, which report on
Smart meters.
Yeah, you're gonna have a smart meter that reports on what the temperature is.
Right.
And most people will go along with it. But
yeah,
what's the rationale for this? Like, is there some reason for this?
No, there is no reason. It's just more control. That's what it comes down to.
I think a lot of this stuff, this policy making, it's almost become habitual. It's like, this is the direction the train is going. Okay, what's the next policy we got to make? What's the next thing we have to do? It's like there's almost no introspection.
Getting back to that requirement of temperature, the hacker in me sees an opportunity there for somebody with a little bit of Arduino skill to start making a programmable reporting thermostat that sends out a report of one temperature and lets you set whatever temperature you want.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, like in a co-op, a co-op works as a corporation, like a union of people. They all have an invested interest they're all stakeholders in the property. And in a co-op in New York, heat is free. Heat is free and water is free, and no one gets billed. Let's just say if you have your temperature up all the way 24/7, doesn't matter, if you're using your heat or your neighbor's using heat, everyone shares the bill. And what is being presented now with co-ops in New York is that each unit now has an individual thermostat, so they can regulate to see which person using more heat or not, which defeats the purpose of a co-op.
Right. Oh, so this law also says you have to have independent temperature reporting.
It's not there yet, but that's what they're trying to implement now in the state of New York, what the government's trying to push forward.
So if I lived in sort of upstate New York and I wanted to have a little log cabin up in the middle of the woods or something, this would not be allowed unless I had a heating system that could guarantee a particular temperature.
It's just for New York City.
I see.
Yes, but now what you're mentioning now, like let's say again, you're going off the grid. They're going to make it very difficult for you to live off the grid. So what they're doing is they're cutting utility provisions off from you if you live upstate. Let's say the closest market is now much further closer to a city center. Oh, and then you living off the grid and you want power, they're going to make the utility bill much higher versus someone who lives within the city. So that's kind of the way of they're coercing you off your land. That's what's happening.
Well, yeah, okay, I can see them trying to do that, but you know what? I have faith in Americans to not be hemmed in like that. This is one of the things I like about the United States, is that there's this kind of built-in ornery character to Americans that as soon as you start telling them what they can and can't do, they point upwards with the middle finger of their hand and sometimes reach for a firearm.
Yeah, Canada's not quite like that.
No, we're nowhere near as bellicose as Americans, and that refusal to be told what to do, I find an admirable character in Americans. There are some Canadians who are a bit like that, but most of them are, pussies, to be honest.
Yeah,
Send your letters of complaint to JUSTINTRUDE.
Yeah, just send your letters of complaints to the cuck of Castro.
Yeah, Prime Minister Zoolander. He's got my number.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. Here we are. I came back from Asia and suddenly fucking a ski instructor's in office. I couldn't believe it, first of all. And then and now we've got Trump in America. It's interesting times, brothers.
It's an interesting contrast between the two heads of state, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like we reversed it because it was Harper before. Harper was more like Trump, and Obama was more like
Harper
Trudeau.
was a much more calm. I mean, Trump is the king of the online trolls, right?
Yeah.
Like Harper was a really buttoned down sort of a guy compared to Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when your president's a fucking Twitter troll, man, you got something going for you.
He's a reality TV star, is what he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, dudes, I'm going to have to wrap this up because my laptop battery is getting close to the bottom.
Yeah, that's good. That's fine, man. That's great talking to you, John. I'm glad you got to hash it out with Nick a bit. And I'm trying to do this once a week thing. I don't have time to do much more, so it's just nice to reconnect, talk to people, and if you're into it, we can do it at some point in the future as well.
Yeah, I'm totally into it. Thanks. I'm really glad you had me on.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, for joining in. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks.
Right, take care, man. All right, guys, that was John the other, and I guess me and Nick can kind of wind things down here. We're getting close to the second hour. Oh, you're still on there, John?
Yep, I'm.
No, John's
still there. Why do people in New York talk like they are half Norwegian rat? I don't get that. Doesn't make any sense to me. You're jealous. You wish you sounded like Donald fucking J.
Okay,
that was interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, that's John. John again. He, like I said, he's MRA and MGTOW, and he's been a voice in that community for a while. He's got some interesting stuff to say. I also wanted to give another shout out to Paul Proteus. I don't know if he's listening because I asked him to listen in on the chat tonight. So he might be listening. I don't know if you're there. You can put your hand up, Paul. I don't know if he's there. And also, I'm still going to try and keep bugging him to get on here eventually, but we'll see. Also, guys, I'm going to try and go through kind of just my address book of people that I've discussed stuff with before on in MGTOW communities and see if I can get other people to join eventually. Not every week, but once in a while. Once in a while. So, yes, again, thanks, JT. I'm doing it in Indonesian. JTO.
How much what's their language? What is it called?
It's Indonesian. It's a Malay dialect. So it's
okay.
Malaysian and Indonesian language very very similar. Very similar. If you go around the archipelago.
How much of it can you speak?
I would say I'm about 75% fluid in conversational Indonesian. 75-80% fluid.
Very cool.
Yeah. Reading a little bit less. I think my reading's up maybe around 60 to 65% fluency. Comprehension, listening comprehension probably.
It seems a lot of people love Paul. I mean, he hasn't. I went to his channel. He hasn't really released anything as of late.
No, he's retired. He's retired basically. But I talked to him. I mean, he's still around, But he's like, he said to me, I said, hey, I can only do weekend stuff, and he's like, well, I can't do weekends, and I don't know. He's got other stuff going on, so maybe eventually I can get him. I also talked to Turd Flinging Monkey. I wanted to get him on, and he said he can only do it on a weeknight. So maybe, I don't know if you'd be up to that, Nick, but maybe sometime in the future we could do a Friday night podcast and see if he could come on. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm down. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So John seems to be, he's definitely passionate about a lot of the situations regarding MGTOW and what's happening in the West.
Oh yeah, he had his pulse right on it, man, for a long time. I mean, he he was real tight with Voice for Men, Paul Elam, the men's rights movement, and a lot of.
But he's 100% correct as far as, you know, the way to win the game is just by not playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and guys like Paul Elam, they wanna play the game. He's kowtowing to the feminist narrative, which is not. You can't talk to them.
No,
can't do it.
No. And
again, you want to go straight with a conversation. They want to go sideways. You can't win with that.
No, it's impossible. And they also think that by being louder as a man, they're going to get some kind of attention, and they're just not. I mean, the only attention the men's rights movement ever gets is when a female is attached, when it's a female's lips behind the megaphone. That's the only time. That's the only time, and I've said that so many times. And even today, a lot of the people that fall into like the anti-feminist groups or the men's rights activist groups, they're still pushing for that. Let's get more women shouting our narrative, and maybe people will listen. Hasn't worked yet.
Well, it becomes a reactionary. Let's think of something really crazy to say now, and then we'll get more people to talk about it. You see what I'm, you know?
Well, let me. Have you watched that documentary that Casey J did, that ex-feminist
with the red pill?
Yeah, the red. Have you watched it? Hello?
No, I haven't. I haven't watched anything like that.
Okay, if you ever get a chance, you should try to watch it. But just kind of to sum it up here, a feminist goes to make a documentary about the men's rights movement because she thinks that the men's rights movement is full of a bunch of misogynists and they hate women and blah blah. So she spends a couple years. She spends a couple years trying to interviewing men's rights activists, trying to put together a documentary. And when she comes out of it and produces it, she's no longer a feminist. She denounces the entire movement. Now this documentary becomes very popular. It's screened all over the world. It's shut down in a lot of gynocentric places like Australia and Canada. Feminists are protesting it. But again, you have a female voice. You got a female's lips behind the megaphone of men's rights, and of ex-feminists at this. Okay? This woman came out of it disgusted that she was ever a feminist. And so all the men's rights are kind of like clapping their hands and going, finally, somebody's listening. Finally, somebody's listening. But they're not really. Still. They're not really listening. And
well, you know,
let me
there's no winning. There would have to be a seismic, cataclysmic event for this to change. And I don't think Western men, and again, any race or creed or what have you, they've been bent over a barrel for so long since the 60s that I don't think anything is going to change whatsoever.
No.
So the best thing for us is to see it, measure it, analyze it, and go your own way.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, like, the whole premise, and maybe people don't understand this, but the whole premise where she started from, where Cassie J started from, was Paul Elam wrote an article that said it's beat a bitch month or something. Okay, he wrote this very controversial article, and
you're breaking up a bit.
Hello?
Might be on my end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So Paul Elam wrote this article, and I don't remember. People in the chats might not remember the name of the article, but it was a very viewed article, very controversial. It was called "Beat a Bitch Month" or something. So it was very controversial. He's talking about, we should dedicate this month as "Hit a Bitch Month," but it was intentionally controversial because the MRAs have to do that to get attention. They need negative attention to get any attention at all. Okay, you can't be an MRA and go, we need to discuss male suicide and have anybody stand up and listen. Nobody will listen. So he goes ahead and he writes.
Well, no one cares.
Yeah, nobody cares. Exactly. Nobody gives a shit if men are killing themselves. That's the whole point. So the MRAs have to stand up and be. They need the attention you get from controversy. Otherwise, no one listens. So Paul Elam, that was his tactic. So he writes this horrible article, and Cassie J goes in and goes, "Oh, these guys are misogynists." Comes out of the whole thing saying, "I'm no longer a feminist," because the article itself was a parody on what feminists were actually saying. Was like, it was an article from some feminist website which was saying, have you ever hit your boyfriend? Because we sure have, and here's the stories to back it up. So it's just supporting violence against men. He was trying to be controversial and make a parody of it. It backfired in his face. It didn't work. He got attention. He got a lot of attention, but it didn't help his cause. And it didn't help his cause until a woman came along and started talking about it. And then finally it got some positive attention. But again, nothing has changed and nothing will change.
No, because women have no vested interest in the men, therefore they don't care.
No.
So you'll never see women commenting on a MGTOW channel unless they're trolling, right? They don't give a shit. Women are too busy focusing on stupid things like makeup and what's the best hair dye. You can see it. You can see what women watch on YouTube versus what men watch on YouTube.
Yeah, here it is.
Women don't even know what make. You go on. What up?
No, yeah, you're right. Most women don't even know what MGTOW is. But I was just going to say the chat said the article is "Bash a Violent Bitch." That was the title. A couple of people have said "Bash a Violent Bitch."
Right. So he had to Trojan horse them into getting them to view his material.
Yes, he needed.
Right, but again, women don't have logical thinking. You can't argue with them.
Especially
you have to walk away.
Yeah.
And I agree. The number one thing I agree with MGTOW is it goes back to the attention. Just by ignoring them, they self-destruct.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly.
Before you talk about hypergamy and Audis and Starbucks and puppy dogs, first you need my attention.
Yeah.
So, good example is I go to this coffee shop every morning. And is a fairly attractive girl. She had to be in her early 20s, and I've been seeing her about a dozen times now. And I just tell her what I want, and I point to what it is I want. I don't say good morning. I don't say how are you. I just say, give me that. I want one of those and a large coffee. And she goes, say please. You can say please. And I just look at her, and I would say something. I make a snide comment. I'm like, oh, pretty please, right? But I'm neglectful in thinking of being polite, and I do it to her every morning, and she keeps getting more and more mad at me that I do that.
Yeah,
it's a good example.
Another example, I get a sort of sick joy out of watching kind of younger looking, attractive women come into the store I'm at and try to buy booze, and they'll always pull out their identification because they want me to ask it. They want me to ask them for their ID. They want me to, because it's a validation that they still look young. So they're just
right.
They just want me so badly that they have it out, kind of like ready. And I look at them.
No, I don't need that.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need your ID.
You look old enough.
Exactly.
That's great. That's brilliant.
I know, it's beautiful.
Brilliant.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm just like, no, I don't need your ID.
Right. If women didn't care, a guy could care less about saying what his age is. Women care.
Yes.
Therefore, we can all agree that there's a difference in the sexes if you care so much about your age.
Absolutely. And not only that, women, you can almost ask a woman on a date if you ask her for her ID in that kind of situation. They get so pleased with themselves. It's unbelievable. And they get upset when you don't. Whereas a man, if you ask him for ID, he feels bad. He's like, geez, I still look like a boy? Fuck.
Right. Yeah, you get upset about it. So there's a perfect example, and the best thing what you've done is by just saying, "No, I don't need it."
Yeah.
You just keep walking. It's all right.
Yeah. No, you look old. You're all right.
My one of my mentors used to tell me is like, if you're in the middle of a conversation with a woman you like, just walk away out of nowhere. I gotta go.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye. Okay, and that's it.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is they'll fester. They'll ponder. That conversation, that moment will ferment in their minds, and then the next time you see them, they're looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
And that's when you can go in for a kill and get a fuck.
Yeah. No, yeah, they're pretty simple-minded. Pretty simple-minded, man. And then I think then that concept just in MGTOW extends to the point where, anytime you associate with a woman socially, and God forbid physically, you're at risk. You're at you have to be very, very careful, very, very careful, in a business setting, or even in a social setting, a personal setting. It's dangerous.
See, I haven't really been around enough women in a workplace environment where it's gone to such levels that HR had to be involved and things like that. You know, I had at a job interview recently, and then these two guys in front of two other women were talking about this woman was answering her door naked.
Ugh.
And the guy was being really descriptive. Like, oh yeah, her saggy tits were hanging out. It was fucking disgusting. And the girls are chiming in, laughing, and kind of getting into the conversation. So, again, I don't know. It's the megaphone. It's the megaphone. That was this example that I'm telling you about, is where women are laughing and enjoying the conversation, not taking it to a level where they are offended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you find yourself in a female-dominated workplace, it can be very, very dangerous. And it's very ironic, too, that most business environments or office-type environments, most of them are their HR is run by women. I mean, HR is a female department. It's a female-driven department.
The commies are the political arm of business.
Yeah, yeah, man. They're the gatekeepers of your business, and that job is always given to women. And it's funny because these women will, and because women are so competitive, they'll hire, and they're the gatekeepers. Their number one priority is to hire the most young and attractive looking guy. They're not going to hire other attractive women because that's competition. So from the get-go, you're a man that's being let in because you're bigger chance of becoming a victim to their vitriol later on. It's horrible.
Well, it's unfortunate because most men and women usually become, boyfriend, girlfriend, or get married because of work. I mean, my parents met at work. So how are you supposed to form companionship and camaraderie in the workforce if you're constantly afraid of what's going to happen? If you say the wrong thing, if you touch her or what have you. That goes back to that New York Times article you sent me, and how the New York Times is saying this is a good thing that you're afraid at work.
Yeah, because you're what you're doing is you're weighing out the benefit and harm. And the harm of trying to form relationships at work is so great. It outweighs the benefits by so much. Are you going to risk the possibility of a blooming relationship, a blooming romantic relationship, a serious one with a female coworker? Are you going to risk that for the possibility that it could lose your job, your reputation, you could end in jail, you could never work again? Are you really going to risk that? I don't think so. I mean, that's where we're at right now.
Lot Cheese just made a good comment. Not sure what the point of making waves with this stuff like bashing a bitch month. It still never leads to anything now that you've made yourself a troll. Basically, I 100% agree with that statement.
Yeah, I do too. But that's the desperation of MRAs. You see, that's their desperation. They have no other recourse. They have to troll to get any kind of attention. And that attention, that trolling attention finally got them the ear of a woman, again, Cassie J, the red pill woman, that got her attention. She made the documentary, and a woman's lips behind the megaphone got the general public's attention to just turn their head. Just turn society turn their head for a moment, heard the whimper of a man, and then turned back and went along their business. That's it.
Right.
No.
So, but the nice thing about feminism is that it's making women more miserable because they're now in the workforce. Now you got to do a man's job. Now you got to pay taxes. And I've spoken to many young women, and most women who regurgitate some type of feminist narrative. I ask them, what's better, you going to work and going to school, or would you rather be home cooking, cleaning, and gossiping with your mother and going shopping? And they smirk and laugh and say, yeah, I'd rather be home, you know, taking care of my mom and going shopping. I go, there you go. So why are you supporting feminism?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, well, and then on the contrary, this is the danger of it, because as feminine kind of pushing the idea into young women's minds that, hey, you need to be part of the workforce. Don't stay at home. That's a sign of weakness. You're being controlled by the patriarchy, all this bullshit. The problem is, once they're in the workforce, their sort of hypergamous or gynocentric nature doesn't change. So once they're in the workforce, now they're going, wait a second, this is tough, and I'm not getting paid as much because I take more time off. So I want you to pay me the exact same amount of money as a man, even though I do less work.
Well, not only that, is that women are more prone to illnesses. They're more likely, obviously, they're going to get pregnant. Okay, so their medical bills skyrocket. This is another problem with women in the military. Women join the military for the health benefits. As soon as they join the military, what's the first thing that happens? Oh, I'm pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I got the health benefits, and now you get maternity leave. You get the health benefits, and you didn't do anything other than get out of boot camp.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. That's the danger of it. Is feminism is distorting kind of I would say the self-reflection of how women see themselves. It's distorting it. It's distorting it to a point and pushing them into a system that they don't really want to be a part of. But once they're in that system, that's when the gynocentrism comes forward. That's when the hypergamy comes forward, and they go, hey, now it's time to look at me. Now it's time to give me all the benefits that I see these men having, but I don't want to put in the work. And that goes all the way back. That goes all the way back to the suffragettes and giving women the right to vote. And
right. I'll use my mother was a good example. The last 4 or 5 years of her working, she never missed a day of work. She always did her job and everything. But out of nowhere, I'll be home and she's home. I'll wake up and she's sitting on the couch. I'm like, why are you home? You're supposed to be at work. She goes, I just didn't feel like going to work today. I'm like, what? Are you sick? Is there anything wrong with you? No, I didn't really want to work.
Yeah. And they get away with that too.
And she totally got away with it.
No,
and she kept doing it more and more. The one time she did it, okay, one time, and then it became a repetitive thing that she was able to get away with it. And towards the end, she barely went to fucking work.
Well, when I was teaching in Indonesia, in Jakarta, I was working in a profession that was 75%. It was actually a bit more male than you would find in, say, a North American school, but I would say about 65 to 70% female, and female teachers were absent all the time.
Right. Yeah.
All the time they were absent. I mean, they just didn't show up. They weren't there. And every single time I had a female partner, because our classes were divided 2 teachers per class, and my partner just happened to be female every time, and she was fucking gone so often, man. Just didn't show up. Sick, who knows?
Well, maybe the school just didn't pay her enough, and there was no point in her actually going to work because of such a low, meager wage. You fucking pig.
Well, and you got to remember too, it was even more extreme because I was a foreigner, so they were paying me 10 times what they were paying a local.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, otherwise foreigners wouldn't.
The way it should be, damn it. It's your fucking Canadian privilege.
Well, otherwise nobody's going to come over there and work if you're not going to offer them that.
Of course.
So, but the thing, and I hear so often in, God, and this just came to my mind recently because I saw somebody talk about it in social media, was making fun of it. Was an Australian skit as well, a comedy skit, and the Aussies are so fucking feminist. The Aussie men are so cucked, it's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But there's a sort of a skit where there's this emergency in a hospital, and this nurse runs into a room and goes, "We got an emergency, and the doctor goes, "What is it?" She's like, "It's the man flu. It's the man flu," and everybody's got to go and pay attention to this man who has a flu. So. Right? And it's this whole idea that men, when they get a flu, they're just so wimpy, but women can tough through it. And I don't understand where this fucking myth came from, because like I said, women are constantly sick from and not going to work.
Yeah, that's bizarre. That's really strange.
But the thing is this is, to me, this is a good example of just the blind hypocrisy and complete disenfranchised mind of the feminist world. These narratives of man flu, they've never existed. They never have. And in fact, the opposite is true. The reality says the opposite is true, but they still push those narratives, man. I don't get it.
Well, the other thing is that, and I've mentioned this to you before, that Western women are in fact inferior versus women of most other countries. And I use my Cambodian girlfriend as a good example. She still got that bit of savagery in her as being a Cambodian. You know, obviously a descendant. You know, her mother survived Pol Pot. Her father worked the fields and what have you. She's able to split. She can be a full-blown savage where she's completely capable of living off the grid, not having internet, not having hot water, not having all these things, sleeping outside, and then step into a nightclub and dress and look fantastic. A Western woman could never do those type of things.
No.
You know, I remember her leaving one time. Phone was off. Didn't see her for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, where the fuck were you? She goes, oh, I was in the provinces. And I'm like, where was your phone? Where was everything? She starts laughing at me. She goes, what makes you think I have a cell phone and Wi-Fi when I'm in the provinces?
I went dark.
And she was all malnourished looking, and she was dark. She obviously was out in the sun a lot. And I go, bullshit, you're fucking around. You went with some other foreigner. And then she pulls photos out. I mean, she still had her phone with her, but there was no, you know, there was obviously no
Wi-Fi connection, yeah.
But right, no Wi-Fi or no telecommunications. Then she goes, she shows me pictures that, oh yeah, she was planting rice and everything, you know.
Well, the other thing. Let me give an example of that as well. When I was, I think it maybe my second year in Indonesia, second or third year, my mother and my brother came to visit me, and I took them to West Java to climb Mount Bromo, which is like one of the more popular volcanoes there. It's in East Java, and so I said, you know, they're like, where should we go? I'm like, let's go to Bromo. So I got a friend of mine, Indonesian guy, said, yeah, why don't you come with us? We'll pay your way. You can kind of be our guide. Because at the time I was pretty fresh there, pretty green. I didn't speak the language. And we go to Bromo, and at Bromo, it's a big volcano, and you hike up it, and you hike back down, and you walk across this giant lava plain, and then you get back up to where the retreat is. And when we were walking back up, after we'd been there and coming back, because there's locals that live at the foot of the mountain, around the mountain. And as we're coming back, there's a very steep hill you have to hike up to get back to the retreat area. We're hiking up this steep hill, and suddenly I turn to my right, and there's these two women that looked about 60, I would say 60s, in their 60s. And they were carrying on their shoulders, I shit you not, these giant fucking logs that had to be at least, I would say, 8 to 10 feet long, and maybe a diameter of, I would say maybe a foot and a half diameter. Like, these were not fucking small. And they had them up on their shoulders, and they were slowly hiking up this fucking hill. These were women, weathered. Skin very weathered. I thought they were
seasoned, look like raisins in the sun.
Yeah, man. So I saw this, and again, I'm pretty green. I'm still pretty green in Asia, and I went, what the fuck? I don't think I could do that. And then I turned to my friend. I said, ask them how old they are. So my friend asked, like, how old are you? And she goes, oh, I'm 38.
Right. They're not a delicate little 20-year-old flower.
But 38 looking 60, but just, I mean, pulling logs up hills at the foot of a volcano, man. That's something different.
Response to Rico, what is your girlfriend doing in a nightclub? All right, Rico, here's the thing. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're going to do what you want to do, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's it. Me trying to stop her doing what she wants to do is only going to backfire on me.
Yeah,
That's it.
she's just an Asian girlfriend, man. It's not like some kind of commitment here.
Well, would I treat her the same way as an American woman? No, I would not.
No.
I would not. And with an American girl, I probably have to have much more rigid edicts in line. I'm like, you're going to the nightclub. Like with my Asian girlfriend going to the nightclub, I already know she's going to be right back at the door at night. Like, I don't really have to worry. Like, she's going to find her way home. She's probably going to want me to pick her up. She's just being silly. Whatever. With the white woman, it's totally different. White woman's out looking for another guy.
Yeah, that's
because there's no reason for an American girl to be going to the nightclub if she's with someone.
No.
Totally different concept. Totally different type of mindset. Women tend to have blinders on. You know, like a horse. The horse has those black blinders on to keep them focused on what's in front of them, not what's around them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, Am?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, women as a whole tend to have blinders on when it comes to men. Men, on the other hand, we're looking for anything that looks decent, half decent. Like, oh, those are nice titties. Oh, look at that fucking beautiful ass. Women have blinders on. When they're focused on one guy they want to sleep with, that's the only guy that they're focused on trying to sleep with. Now, if you fall out of those blinders, whether it's your spouse or your girlfriend, once you're not in that woman's blinders anymore, it's over. You can never get back in front of those blinders again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Rico says if she wants, of course she'll cheat if she wants to cheat. I mean, that's really not an issue. It's like when I was in Asia, I had a lot of female friends, but I didn't.
Ooh.
Well, just people I knew. Like,
ooh, AM.
No, you know what I mean.
I'm fucking with you.
But the point is, I used to go party with them. Like, I'd go out and party with them, but there was never. This is when I was starting to take the red pill down. Okay, I'd finished with a relationship after a failed marriage, and this is when I was like, the red pill's coming down really hard. And I still, at that time, I socialized with women. I went out with them, but there was never an incentive to hook up with them. There was never an incentive to try and control them or not control them. They were just people I knew. They happened to be females, and it was actually a very interesting kind of fly on the wall view of how these women thought. I learned a lot from that, actually.
Well, okay. Now, my definition of red pill seems to be a little bit different version of your concept of red pill. I think red pill is when you start to see the indoctrination, the progressivism, the globalization. That's my version of red pill. For example, and I wanted to bring this up to you tonight. Mm-hmm. How do you know you're not losing your fucking mind when it comes to be talking about these type of concepts? Whether it be the homosexual agenda, socialism, right? Mm-hmm. Open borders, Republican versus Democrat. How do you know you're not going crazy? And I started really thinking about this, and I'm like, what's going on here? Is it me? Is this some type of neuroticism? Am I being paranoid? And I'll give you an example how I know I'm not losing my mind, and I know what I'm talking about is the truth and real. I'm driving past a park near my home, and there's always these Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts that get together at this park. Mm-hmm. And they installed a bench at the park, and the bench was in the LGBT flag. And I'm like, I'm looking at that bench, and I'm like, all right, I'm not losing my mind. What the fuck is that shit doing there? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah. I don't think it's very difficult. I mean, you see it happening. The only thing that people really question is like motive. They know it's happening. It's like walking into a crime scene. You know a murder's happened. It's pretty obvious. There's blood on the ground. There's a dead body.
Right, but the problem becomes is that you swallow the red pill and you took a huge dose of it now. Yeah. And everything you do now, going to the supermarket, going to a club, listening to music, watching TV, you're looking at it through a different prism now. Through, all right, is there some type of subtle indoctrination bullshit going on to what the hell I just saw?
Yeah. Well, you can't.
This is the problem. This becomes the neuroticism in when you become red pilled.
I can see that as something that can happen. I mean, I can see it as a side effect. But again, like I mentioned before, swallowing the red pill. When I mentioned it just a moment ago, I was mentioning it more on the level of just understanding feminism and the relationship between men and women. But it's the same. It's within the same vein.
Right. It's in the same. It's still in the same scope of work.
Yes, it's still within the same scope of work. And like I said, once they get comfortable enough with their agenda or motivation or end goal, once they get close enough to it, they don't hide it anymore because it's hubris. It's arrogance.
It's everywhere. Well, it's omnipresent.
Yes, it's pride. Pride comes before the fall. And eventually, the hubris of it is that they are so confident in their message, in their method towards what they want to happen, that it's no longer covert anymore. It's in your face because they don't think they can be stopped. Example, again, you have the director of the last Star Wars tweeting out,
right,
ask me about my feminist film agenda. It's right in your fucking face. Like everybody's people are trying. When it comes to, for the example of Star Wars, people are arguing it did very horribly. The reviews were horrible by the average viewing public. It's gotten more. It in China after a week. 92% of the theaters dropped it. It just failed miserably in China. Okay, so Disney's like reeling from this failure of the movie, and people are going, why did it fail? Oh, well, you know, they destroyed the characters and they didn't do enough fan service. But nobody's talking about the fucking elephant in the room, which says the producer of the movie is wearing a t-shirt publicly that says the Force is female, and the director is telling you to ask him about his feminist film agenda. It's in your face, man.
Right, and this goes back to attention. He's telling you, I want you to ask me so I can have a confrontation with you.
Yes. He wants to laugh in your face.
He wants to laugh in your face, and he wants you to punch him in his face is what he wants.
Yeah, sure. He wouldn't mind a violent reaction at all.
No, he wouldn't.
He would not mind a violent reaction. And that's the whole thing. It's not subvert anymore in a lot of regards. I mean,
no.
we are...
And I think I think this all came to fruition with Obama.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Under Obama's administration.
Obama was the Tinder. Okay,
yes,
he was the Tinder. The spark went off when he was around, and that was it. And that started a fucking wildfire, and it's still burning. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. It's no longer something subjective or covert that you can't put your finger on because they are advertising it now. We are being indoctrinated. Feminism and its cultural Marxist ideology is in popular culture. It is in the music. It is in the movies. It is in the universities. It is in the politics. That's not even a question anymore. The only reason...
Right, I don't know if I sent you the video or not, but I always check the trending, what's trending on YouTube. I always check it every few days. Yeah, you did see that, right?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I just kind of turned it on.
You don't want to watch it. It was disgusting.
Okay.
But anyway, it's this young boy who's a homosexual, grinding, singing like a feminine, like a woman.
God.
And I'm like, who the fuck is this little boy? And everyone's, loving it. And it's, again, mostly white women who love this video. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I've never heard of him before. Sure enough, what is he? And he's from, what is he? Then you take a wild guess.
He's a South African Jew. That's what you told me.
He's a South African Jew, right?
Yeah.
So again, am I losing my mind? No, because what's trending on YouTube at the top is someone I've never heard of before, and probably a lot of people have never heard before, being a faggot.
Yes, and it's effeminate. Again, yes, they're pushing the whole transgender movement, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's being anybody listening in the chat today that has their finger on what's going on within pop culture, education. They know anything about feminism, if they know anything about men's rights movements, if they know anything about MGTOW, they have to understand that this indoctrination is going on.
Right.
They have to understand.
I want to give a shout out right now to 2 Cents. Yo, 2 Cents, you're awesome, man. I almost want to say that 2 Cents gets all of his information from the same place I get my information, which is E. Michael Jones, and he mentioned Andy Nowicki. Outstanding work by those guys. You don't get any more red pilled than watching E. Michael Jones and Andy Nowicki. And again, those guys are usually on T. Kelly's channel.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I want to. Someone just mentioned something. Oh yeah, again, 2 Cents again. You need real religion to control women. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
With that statement, because that's the only way you're going to curtail a young woman's narcissism is through religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why we joke about being a pro Sharia channel.
This is pro Sharia.
Yeah.
This is pro. Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. On that note, like I said, you wouldn't if we were living under Islamic dictates, there would be no Me Too. There would be no Me Too, man. That would.
Well, let's get back into Me Too, and I wanted to mention this while John was on. The whole Me Too agenda is completely veering off track to what really took place in Hollywood.
Yes.
Which is you have the elites in Hollywood, doing these type of things, pedophilia. You don't talk about Corey Feldman because he's a guy.
No.
Right?
No,
Corey Feldman, fuck Corey Feldman.
They brush him under the rug.
He's a crazy person.
Yeah,
brush him under the rug, even though his best friend, the other Corey, committed suicide or whatever happened to him. I don't know the whole story. I don't know. He's a lunatic, Corey Feldman. He just completely got pushed aside, and you're now taking the whole situation in Hollywood and now spreading it into the general population, where it has nothing to do with people at work. It has nothing to do with people. This is about Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I use Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was the sacrificial lamb to everything else that's going on behind the scenes in Hollywood. Obviously, Harvey Weinstein did something wrong to the elites that are above him. Okay? Mm-hmm. And also, you haven't really heard from Harvey Weinstein, because Harvey Weinstein said the last time spoken to is, I have so much dirt on everybody else. If you keep attacking me, I'm going to air everybody's laundry out.
Yeah. He's just going to walk away and end up in, I don't know, fucking the Canary Islands or something. I mean, he's got nothing to worry about. But
right, it's a cover-up for pedophilia. Again, Lochez, I guess his name is Lochez, I don't know.
Yes.
Anyway, Loch Ness Monster. Okay, Loch Ness Monster says it's probably a cover-up for pedophilia. I agree with that, but it's got to go a little bit higher. You got to go a little bit higher than just the pedophilia, is that there's some type of indoctrination, mind control, and manipulation going on.
Well, the whole... This is the thing... These people live in a system of, it's indoctrination, and from the parents down to the children, and they grow up in those systems. They grow up in very corrupt systems, very, very corrupt systems. Whenever I see a young and up and coming Hollywood actress or actor nowadays, I'm just like, I wonder how much their parents fucking sold him off to get his ass fucked. You know what I mean? It's sick. These people are sick people.
Well, Dave Chappelle, he's becoming more and more outspoken about what's going on in Hollywood, and they're brushing Dave Chappelle off because, number one, Dave Chappelle supports Donald Trump. He's a Republican, and he's got a lot of dirt on a lot of people in Hollywood. One of the big reasons why he stepped down from the Dave Chappelle show is they wanted him to dress like a woman, and he says, "I'm not doing it." Yeah, you've heard of that before about him dressing as a woman?
Oh yeah, I heard.
Yeah, and he goes, Eddie Murphy's done it. Who's the other one? Fuck, the transgender comedian. Not Ron Paul. Jesus, RuPaul.
Oh yeah.
RuPaul is I forgot his real name, but he's one of Eddie Murphy's friends who did the movie that they went to Queens, New York, and started the McDonald's or whatever. Mm-hmm. The fuck is that name of that movie? You know, you're good with movies.
I don't know, man. Coming to America?
Yeah, who's the other guy that started Coming to America?
Jesus, didn't he have his own TV show on like
Right?
Arsenio Hall.
Yes, but he's RuPaul. Arsenio Hall is RuPaul.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay, not many people know that. I'm pretty sure he is. But anyway, Dave Chappelle didn't want to go along with this agenda. He goes, "I'm not going to do it." And apparently he got loud with the executives, to the point where it almost broke out into a fist fight. So, again, Dave Chappelle is kind of dog whistling to people. Hey, look, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I wanted to bring up something for anybody that's still listening that you can carry forth with you into the coming days. A friend of mine came up to me who's very liberal and very cucked in real life, and I mentioned to him, yeah, they're targeting Stan Lee now for the Me Too, and he's like, yeah, of course he did it. Of course he did it. He was saying. Of course he did it. And he tried to kind of criticize me by going, yeah, hashtag you too, right? Kind of saying like, I'm part of the problem because I'm not listening and believing, right? So I decided we should co-opt that idea of hashtag you too. Hashtag you too should be, oh, you got accused of sexual harassment, so did I. Hashtag you too. Oh, you got falsely accused of rape? So did I.
You too.
Hashtag you too. Because, I mean, if you follow the media, if you're following the main stories of the media, if you're listening to the right sources and you're getting the right information, every single day I see 2, 3, 4 stories come out of a false rape accusation, or of a woman getting caught fucking little boys, or a teacher fucking their little boy students. I mean, every single day these stories are coming out more and more and more. And of course, the women are getting away with it. So we should be saying hashtag you too for basically the men who are being falsely accused, which is just out of control, and for the poor men that are actually being sexually assaulted and the women getting away with it. So it's hashtag you too, man. 3 out of 5.
But it's quite funny that I don't know if you watched Saturday Night Live, but they had Tom Brady on Saturday Night Live, and they did this like black and white skit of Tom Brady sexually harassing women, and the women love it. And then when the other one, I forgot what the fuck is his name, Fred Armisen decides to sexually harass women, they call HR, they call the police and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever see that skit?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that skit and I've seen that joke told in in different forms of memes, but it's true. I mean, again, like going back to what I said about HR, women will hire hot men through HR because they're women. They're the gatekeepers. They won't hire ugly men, and they won't hire women that compete with them for the attention of men. But if you're in an office and you're attractive, you can hit on women all you want, and they're not going to say anything.
Yep. Look, I mean, I want to say I've gotten away with a lot at work, but yeah, it does happen. I think being a good-looking male definitely helps you out with women in the workforce. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I used my looks at my previous job to get women to do my job for me, which is kind of fucked up. But I would go, "Oh, can you help me with this?" "Oh, yeah, sure. I'll more than likely to help you do whatever it is." And I actually got them to do my job for me.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not going to protect you from child support payments. It's not going to protect you from the family courts. It's not going to protect you from a rape accusation or a sexual assault accusation. It's not going to protect you from that leading to an end to your career. It won't. In fact, some of the most attractive and powerful men in Hollywood their wives left them. They're paying child support, or they've been accused of sexual assault. It doesn't. In the end, it doesn't protect you. It might give you It might give you a little bit of leverage when it comes to small things like that, but in the end, it's no protection. As long as you got a dick and balls between your legs, you're in trouble. Yeah, you're at a disadvantage.
Right. Well, it's still this fuels MGTOW, which is great. Yeah. So more guys will just simply ignore women at work. They're not going to help women. This goes back to the book you sent me, where a guy was helping. The introduction of the book goes, a man pulls over to help this lady in distress.
Mhm.
Well, now we're just not going to. What was it? A woman had a flat tire. Obviously, the way she was dressed up with her nice bag, lipstick, pencil skirt, she obviously was not dressed, nor probably was she capable of changing a flat tire. And the guy pulls over, helps her, and, you know, does everything for her, doesn't exchange phone numbers, doesn't ask what her name is. The guy just simply helped the woman change a flat tire. Now, you can change a flat tire, and you can stay there. And you have to figure it out your own way, how to change that flat tire.
Yeah, what for those listening, the book he's quoting is The Manipulated Man by Esther Vilar. Esther Vilar. She's a woman, and I think the book was published, I can't remember, back in the 70s, late 70s, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look that up again. But I suggest all of you to look up The Manipulated Man. In fact, I should have brought it up when John the Other was on, because he was the one that turned me on to that book. And
it was very, very good.
Yeah, and there's like there's incredibly quotable quotes from that book. Absolutely fascinating. And because it was written by a woman, it really throws a twist on it if you try to quote that to people.
It was basically how men are slaves and they don't realize it.
Yes, absolutely. The manipulated men. Men are manipulated by women. They're slaves to gynocentrism.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it really was an eye-opening read for me. It was very good. It didn't focus on hypergamy. It didn't focus on the typical knee-jerk reaction from MGTOW.
It didn't use the MGTOW or modern lingo, but the concepts are still there. It just didn't use the language. The concepts are still there. Here's a quote from it, from Esther Vilar in The Manipulated Man. Theoretically, it is possible for a beautiful woman to have less intelligence than a chimpanzee and still be considered an acceptable member of society. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. And that's a woman saying that. In other words, as long as a woman is attractive, she can be as dumb as a fucking post, and society just you are a quality member of this society. It's incredible.
Shows you how fucking useless, how... Look, I mean, men are just the worker drones. I mean, ants protect the queen ant. You bring her resources, you bring her food, and she spreads her legs for you. It's very Darwinism if you really think about it, but I don't view humans as being the same as a chimp.
No, we're not.
Or a bug. We're much higher beings than that. I mean, we have communication. We have linguistics, right? Yeah. Animals don't have that.
No, we're not the same as animals. And a lot of the examples that you'll hear through MGTOW circles of kind of the condition of men and women is biological, and they do make comparisons to chimpanzees as what they would call our closest relative. So there is a lot of comparisons made, but you can't use those comparisons as a be-all, end-all of this.
All right, so RuPaul is not Arsenio Hall. I really thought they were the same person. My mistake.
Who knows, man? Maybe they are. Has anybody ever seen them in the same room together?
I like it when you talk about that shit.
Yeah. Has anybody seen them in the same room together? Because otherwise you're just making an assumption.
Yeah, really. Oh, that was good. Hey, let's change the topic.
Sure.
I wanted to talk about, I don't know, we can do 9/11, which we've been, discussing that on and off, but not on air.
Okay, well,
and the other
hold on a second. What? Let me just make an announcement here. Okay, guys watching, I want you to understand that Nick and I, as we've been practicing with this channel, we're not 100% going to do MGTOW content all the time.
Well, let's talk about the reasons why we can't do it all the time.
Okay, well, you go ahead first.
Well, the reason why is nothing. It's beating a dead horse. How much more shit do you want to hear about women? You're talking about women too much. It's like talking about air. They're here. There's nothing you can do about it. And I remembered I met a homeless black man. He was in a bottle room in my supermarket. And I was cleaning the bottle room, and I was complaining about this narcissistic girl that I work with to one of my fellow coworkers. And the homeless black man turned to the both of us and he said, "The more you keep talking about women, the more it makes you look like a crazy person." Something to that effect. He goes, "You more or less is the point that he was trying to make is that you'll never figure them out. They are all completely different. We can measure certain things on different women. Yes, money's important, resources, all this other type of fucking pseudo bullshit that we talk about in MGTOW communities. Yes, but at the end of the day, they're fucking women, and who gives a fuck? Being a man and talking about men shit is more important. Talking about why we're in the state we're in, where we're going as a society, is far more important than talking about a woman's Gucci bag and why she loves that Gucci bag and how you can provide that Gucci bag for her."
Okay. Yeah, and I'd have to say that I'm on the same page in that regard. Is that one of the reasons? This isn't the only reason, but one of the reasons why I stopped producing as much content as I used to. It's not the only reason, but one reason was you kind of eventually tire of saying the same thing over and over again. The message is there, and it's there for people that need to learn it. Yes, okay, so apparently RuPaul and Arsenio have been together. Okay, fair enough.
Wait, now I gotta look this up. I don't believe it.
Yeah, according to them, they've been together.
Were you there? Were you there? Did you see them in the same room together?
Well, okay, but anyway, okay, so maybe they're not the same person. But the point is another reason was just it had to do with economics and me having to move and a lot of problems. But yes, eventually you grow tired of the same topics again and again and again. The information is there for people to learn it, and I will always come back to it.
This is photoshopped. I don't believe it. Photoshopped. Fake news.
I guess there's no way for us to prove if it was photoshopped. We don't know that, but
well, going back to that, what you have this fucked up argument that's like really like mind blowing. How you have to be in the. Oh no, it was about how people look alike and they're never in the same room together. Do you remember you sending me that video? What was that about? How people are doubles. Obama is a double for someone else. What was that?
That was questioning the identity of a lot of celebrities and politicians. So like, are they who they really say they are? Yeah, that's,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
And what was Obama? Fuck, who the hell was that?
There was a what the fuck? Obama was a he was a son of he was one of the sons of what the fuck is his name? Richard Pryor.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But again, this is basically just questioning who these people like. Who are the
questioning the question?
Yeah, who are the identities of these people? You know, like
fake news. 2 cents. Fake news. It was double. There was doubles. Okay, it was the lighting.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. So who really fucking knows? But you know, actually, when you're talking about are you going crazy? You know, how do you know you're not going crazy? In the end, you really got to trust your own senses, man. And you really got to. Reality has to kind of start and stop with your senses and how you take it in. You know, and then you take the method of what I'm experiencing through my senses. Is it repeatable? Is it verifiable? Is it repeatable?
Well, me seeing that LGBT fucking park bench installed by the Boy Scouts is enough to you know, it's still there. I'm not losing my mind. Who said it was okay for the Boy Scouts to install this LGBT fucking bench right here?
Yeah.
Right in the park with little children.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. Like, is what you're experiencing, is it verifiable? Can you verify that that's real through experimentation? Is it repeatable? Can you repeat that experiment over again? Okay, is it objective? I mean, can you share that? Can someone else experience the same thing also? It's not that difficult.
Right.
It's not that difficult. But I mean, but the thing is, you really do have to question it. You can't just take it for face value. You can't just go, oh yeah, his name's Obama. He went to school in fucking Hawaii. His dad's a Nigerian. His mom was a fucking worked for the Ford Foundation and then dated an Indonesian guy. And got married, and his name is Barry.
Well, you don't believe about his nanny being a tranny. I sent you that about his nanny being a tranny in Indonesia.
Oh,
and you didn't believe it or whatever.
Whether or not I believe it, I don't know. It could be true. But that's what I mean. You really have to. You can't. One thing you can't do is just take the popular narrative and then swallow it whole. That's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
No, I'm not doubting it.
It
becomes hard. It becomes very difficult to decipher what is real and what. I mean, living in the age of information, it becomes really hard to decipher what is real and what is not real. For example, I do not think Julian Assange is who everyone thinks he's out to be.
He's definitely not.
I think he's a patsy. I think he's a false hero and a false icon.
Absolutely.
Well, but now wait, you want to why do I think that is because he referred Bradley Manning as a she and as Chelsea Manning. So he's what? He's going with the narrative that he's acknowledging that it is the man is a she and a transgender.
Yeah. The tranny nanny. That's what they're saying. Obama's tranny nanny.
Right. So Julian Assange acknowledging a man as a woman and calling it Chelsea tells me, okay, so why is he doing that? And calling the he-she a hero, when in fact the he-she is definitely not a fucking hero by a long shot. And the same thing goes for Snowden. If Snowden is who they say he was, he'd be dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'd be dead.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sometimes it just takes a little common sense. I mean, just takes a little common sense, and you kind of got to break out of the popular narrative. I find one of the philosophies that I stick close to, and this is something I learned from, believe it or not, from studying Islam, is there's a couple, it's repeated a few times. There's a passage that says, and this is supposed to be the God speaking through Muhammad saying, if you believe in the majority of people, in the popular opinion, if you believe in the majority of people, you will be led down the wrong path. It's just basic common sense. That's all it is. It's not some kind of brilliant insight. It says the majority opinion is the group think. This is what people latch on to because it's easy. It's intellectually lazy to follow the popular opinion. So common sense says, if you want to know the truth, steer clear of the popular opinion as much as you can. And I think that anybody that's been red-pilled in MGTOW has to understand that. Because if you follow the popular opinion, you'd still be shitting blue pills.
Well, what would be classified as a popular opinion? The 9/11 narrative?
Of course. Anything that becomes the public consciousness, the majority of people believe this to be true. To me, that's just
Democrat good.
Yeah,
Democrat good. Republican bad. I'm a good person, therefore I must be a Democrat. I vote Democrat.
Yeah, women good, men bad. I mean, that's pretty benign stuff. But if you use that as a litmus test, if you need to start somewhere, in understanding what is real and what is not, use that first as a litmus test. Go, wait a second. What is the popular opinion? Okay, that's what it is. I'm going to go the other way and start searching there first. And
now you've ventured into anti-Semitism, Holocaust revisionism.
Everything, man, everything. Because, and what you'll find is that when you start approaching things from that perspective, when you use the litmus test as what is the popular opinion, okay, and this also goes in line with what are you allowed to criticize and not. The popular opinion you're not allowed to criticize. Once you start going down that rabbit hole,
then you're onto something. You're over the target, and you're gonna catch flack for it.
Exactly. So that's, if you want, that's just use that as your litmus test. If it's swallowed and believed by the majority of the population, automatically consider it to be false and look in the other direction. That's simple. And I just wanted to finish off by saying to the listeners, yes, Nick and I are going to keep content MGTOW related, but we're going to drift off later. So whether or not that's to your liking, that's up to you. Anyway,
again, guys, I don't know how much more you want to hear about fucking women. I mean, it's retarded. You're giving them too much credence. They're not really worth the time and energy or effort, which is the crux of MGTOW. Is just acknowledge. Yes, okay, there's problems. Women are retarded. They're children. We get it. How many more times do you want to hear it? How many more times?
It's a little more complicated than that, but I understand what you're saying. And the thing is, though, is I have personally had the pleasure of talking to a person, and I know other people who have who've wept, men who have wept and said, MGTOW saved my life. They were suicidal. It's important. It's very, very important. And that's why it's going to continue, and that's why it's always going to be important. That's why it's always going to be discussed and brought up, because it does. It's MGTOW has saved men's lives. It literally has. And so,
wow, Arsenio Hall looks great for a guy who's 60 years old. Man, black really does not crack. Jesus, he hasn't aged one bit.
Really?
Yeah, the guy looks fantastic.
Wow. They can de-age people now in Hollywood. Fuck, you don't even know what.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the black don't crack narrative. That's great. You know, speaking of black don't crack, you know what I do think is gonna start. You're gonna start seeing is more white guys dating black chicks.
That's all right. White guys dating black chicks. Oh yeah.
Because I think black women, even though it is their fault for the plight of the African American community, I think they just completely had it with black guys, and they're just gonna go to white men as being, you know what, I want something different. I'm gonna go get myself a white man.
No, that's happening. That's definitely happening. Definitely.
It is, and I think you're gonna see more and more of that. And to be honest with you, I'm not against it. I used to hook up with 2 black chicks. They were the coolest to hang out with. I can honestly say, hey, I can say, yo, she's really cool. I want to go and hang out with her. And from my point of view, in my humble opinion, is black women are a little bit more like realistic in their you know, they're more grounded to reality. There's none of this airhead bimbo cosmopolitan puppy dog Starbucks attitude you get with black chicks. You never really see black chicks in Starbucks or carrying around dogs, because black chicks are going to be looking at that dog as that's another mouth to feed. I got to feed my own mouth. You know, that's kind of like their attitude when it comes to shit like that, you know?
And Korean women are like, that's dinner. No, I'm just kidding.
Nick, why do you still want to get married knowing what you know about MGTOW? I'm not saying I won't get married or I will get married. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I will not go out of my way and pursue women. I'm just really not going to do it.
Good
That's
answer.
kind of where my attitude is as far as that. I'm not going to keep cruel. I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to keep asking you to hang out. My rule of thumb is I ask you to hang out one time. If you decline, if you flake, that is it. I'll never ask you a second time, because I know from my experience, if she wanted to see me, she would have said, yes, I want to see you now. If she says no, then that's it. And then if she keeps texting me and calling me and asking to hang out, or not hang out, sorry, if she keeps texting and calling and saying, why aren't you talking to me? I go, well, you said no to hanging out. Why do I got to talk to you? That's it. Conversation's dead, right? So, and I probably won't marry an American woman. I'm too jaded with American women. I think the social engineering has gotten to most American women to the point where they're incapable of marriage material. Most of my friends, my best friend married a Brazilian woman. She does not fall for a lot of this. She understands what's happening in America. Why does she understand what's happening in America? Because she's from Brazil and she knows what indoctrination and socialism is. So she's fully aware of it, right? So she's not going to let the state and the manipulation and the mind control undermine her way of thinking, and especially her belief in God. So, you know.
Just digressing just a bit, when you're going back to black don't crack and black women dating white men, you know Bill Burr, right? The comedian.
Yeah, for sure.
He's from Boston, isn't he? I think he's from Boston.
Yeah, he's been around for like 20 years, and he just became really
Yeah.
popular because he pretty much started venturing into conspiracy talk and shit, you know.
Well, he was talking about, he was anti-feminist. He was going strong, kind of. He was touching on MGTOW in a lot of his comedic acts.
Yes, he was. Yep.
He was totally cutting down marriage, but he eventually got married, and guess who he married? A black woman.
What? Ah,
He married a black
there you
woman.
go. Well, unfortunately, and I hate to say this about black chicks, is that they like to be the slave of the white man. It's the truth.
Oof.
The two black chicks I hooked up with never ever talked back to me, ever. And if I say, look, I'm busy, I gotta go home, I gotta go hang out with my friends. All right, there's no. All right, I'll call me later. I'm like, oh, that's it, really? She's like, yeah, it's all right. Just give me a call later. I'm done sucking your dick. Right? I'll catch you later. She'll be like, yo, do you mind giving me a ride to the train station first? I'm like, yeah, sure. Do you want me to? And I'll be like, yo, you want me to buy you something to eat while eating on the train? She goes, no, it's all right. You can buy me something later to eat. I'm like, oh, wow. It was just a great experience, you know?
Oh, Rico's right. Bill Burr's comedy does suck now. He hit his prime, and then once he got married, that was it. It was the end. He's having a baby now, though. Like, he's having a kid, so it's over.
You know, it's so weird, and my father made the point of this, is that Tiger Woods was at the peak of his career until he got married, and that fucked everything up.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Do you know who Chuck Knobloch is?
He was a baseball player.
Okay, do you know the story of Chuck Knobloch?
Did he play for the Twins?
Yeah, he played for the Twins and then played for the Yankees.
Yeah, okay.
He had 21 errors as a second baseman for the New York Yankees. He couldn't throw the ball straight.
In a season? 21 errors in a season?
Yes. It was so bad that he threw the ball and it hit Rudy Giuliani's mother right in the head.
Okay. What happened?
So,
he got married?
His wife was threatening to take the kids and take the house right in the middle of him trying to play baseball.
Christ.
And it ruined his career.
Because he was great with the Twins, man.
Yeah, I think he has 2 or 3 World Series rings, man.
Yeah.
Right? And, one season he was an all-star baseman. Really good. Good leadoff hitter. And one season, I think it was the 99 or 2000 season, he just couldn't throw the ball straight. And everyone was like, well, what the fuck is wrong with him? Turns out his wife was nagging him. I'm taking the kids. I'm taking the house. I want a divorce. So as he's trying to do his job, what is he thinking about? He's thinking about his wife and kids.
He can't do his job. He can't do it.
And this goes back to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was doing so good up until what? He got married. Now, mind you, how did Tiger Woods become a sex addict is because he went to Derek Jeter's party. He went to one of Derek Jeter's parties. Derek Jeter introduced him to all these women. Now, mind you, Derek Jeter was pretty MGTOW up until recently, and all he would do is just bang a bunch of women. And that's how Tiger Woods was like, wow, this is way better than getting married, you know? And then his game picked back up when he started messing around with other women.
Yeah. Well, obviously. I mean, look, that question that was posed to you about do you want to still get married or not? And I have to honestly say, as a MGTOW man, as a committed MGTOW man now in my life, I will never get married again. That's my choice. But I would propose this to any MGTOW out there, okay? I would never encourage a man to get married. However, you need to look at it like this. If you want to be a successful man, if you want to be a very strong, subjective individual, if you want to be not just successful financially, but just emotionally, socially, if that's what you want in your life, don't get married. If you want to become disposable, if you want to become a workhorse, a disposable workhorse, and try to raise children, or try to bring a child into this world and maybe be a positive influence on it, if you want to do that, go get married. If that's what you want. If you want to be a disposable workhorse, get married. And then good luck.
It is scary. You know, when you talk about these things, And I'll give two examples. One is I'm showing a house. It was a second showing of this guy. This guy came in, he was looking at the house. He liked it a lot. I had the second showing today. He brings his wife, and the husband, the guy who found the house, all he's doing is looking at her and seeing if it's to her approval. And she's looking around at it. And you can tell that she's the boss. And I'm like, who the hell's paying for this house? It's got to be him.
He is, yeah.
And she goes, well, honey, maybe we can knock down these walls. Oh, maybe we can do this. He's telling her that. And she's just looking around, not saying anything, just looking around at the whole place. And I was just like, I'm like, fuck that, dude. This is my house.
Yeah.
This is my castle. My philosophy, before I get into the second example, it's your movie, guys. You're the star of your own movie. Anybody else in the movie is co-stars. So when you meet a woman, you have to explain to her, this is my movie, not your movie. You can co-star in my movie. I will never star in your shitty fucking movie. I've said that to quite a few women. It's the truth. It's a star of my movie. Now, granted, that's very narcissistic of me to say these type of things, but it's the truth. Your movie sucks. What's your movie? Eating bonbons and watching fucking Game of Thrones? No, thanks. I'm not doing it. I'm going to go out. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go to Cambodia. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do all these awesome things.
Yeah. And
your movie sucks.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to add to that. I know men that are married, friends of mine that are in Indonesia still, that after I finished my marriage, they all went and got married. And in my head, I'm just thinking, oh my God, like how many years before I see you destroyed? That's what I'm thinking. Now, and you have to understand this. If you see a man who is happily married, if you see a man that seems on the outside,
which is rare,
which is very rare, it's very rare already. But if you see a man on the outside that appears to be happily married, then I guarantee you, there's one of two things is happening. Number one, chances are he's only been married a few years. And number two, he has submitted and committed to being a disposable workhorse. He's decided, that's my life.
The cum dumpster.
Yeah, that's
just blow your load in me and give me children and provide for me.
No, the man has decided if he looks like he's happily married on the outside, and I'm not going to judge whether or not he feels he is or not, but if he appears that way, he has decided, I no longer want to improve myself as a human being. I no longer want to be an individual. I am willing and able, and I allow myself to be a workhorse, a disposable workhorse for a woman and a family. I've made up my mind that's what I want to do. And that's the only way he's going to be able to put a smile on his face, is if he's decided, you know what? Slavery isn't that bad. I can do it. I can do it. That's who.
Okay, so sorry. Two points. One is that a lot of those guys don't seem to realize their predicament, and they seem to be quite happy in that type of predicament. The thing is like one of my best friends, who now I haven't seen in months because I think his girlfriend has gotten to him to the point where I'm not allowed to see him anymore, which is unfortunate. And he's blue-pilled really bad when it comes to this female companion of his. And his argument to me about getting married is, I don't want to die alone. That's what he keeps telling me. He goes, what am I going to be? I'm going to be doing, fucking collecting, what was he talking about? Model trains when I'm 70 years old with no family, no kids, no nothing. I'm just by myself. I'm going to die alone. I don't want that. How do you respond to someone like that?
Well, dying alone is better than being murdered by your wife.
Or being miserable in a horrible marriage or divorce.
Which is basically a form of death. I mean,
right.
You're either going to die alone or you're going to die at the hands of your wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, what is it? What do you want to take? And this is the thing: men don't need to die alone. Men can make friends. Men can be social. If you're an individual and your life is dedicated, you can put yourself into your work, into your creations. You can be creative, improve yourself. Again, it's a discipline. MGTOW's a discipline. learn a trade, learn a language.
Yeah, he doesn't want to accept that. And I do know if he marries this woman, it's going to end in total disaster for him, 100%. And he doesn't seem to realize that.
Well,
the other point I wanted to make to you was
okay.
talking about men being a workhorse when getting married. So my cousin's married to this awesome guy. Fucking love him to death. And he's really climbed the ladder at work. He's a hustler. He has multiple businesses and everything. And he finally moved into a very affluent neighborhood. And he has 2 kids. And he's really happy to be moving into this affluent neighborhood. And they just moved in. They just got the house. My cousin, the female, is now asking about a BMW. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, yo, he just bought you a $500,000 fucking house and you want a BMW now? Where does it end?
Doesn't end.
Doesn't end.
No.
Like a BMW? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you that fucked up in your head? You just got the new house. Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's, again, like I said, if you... I remember watching a documentary, and maybe it's a very interesting one, and I think people should look out for it. It was called something about the history of fatherhood, and it was a BBC documentary that they put out. It was a 2-part, and it was very interesting because it painted men in the past, because we often get this picture, which again is sold as the popular opinion through the masses. We get there's a popular opinion or a majority opinion that men in the past were abusive, women were, you know, they were just victims even more of the patriarchy. We needed feminism to set women free. All this bullshit, which is all a lie. It's all absolute lie. And they were interviewing a lot of elderly people. This documentary is a few years old now, but they were interviewing a lot of elderly people who are now in their 70s, 80s years old, but grew up during World War II, where their father was the head of the household. And these people had, both men and women, had ultimate and utter praise for their fathers. Awesome, utter praise. It was just, my father was incredible. So this documentary painted this completely contrary narrative, where the media today wants to see men in the past as being abusive and absent and patriarchal, and women were barefoot and pregnant, and it was horrible. In the meantime, you hear the real people telling the real stories, and these were all interviewed from England. It was all done in England. They had nothing but praise for their father, who went to work every day, came home. A lot of them went off to war. Some of them didn't come home. And again, the point that was being missed in this incredible documentary, which basically tore apart the feminist narrative, but the part that was missed, and the point that was missed, was that these men were worshipped and praised because they were disposable and they were workhorses. They were not women. They were not abusive. They were not oppressive. The women were not oppressed. The women were not held down by a patriarchy. These men were playing the role. Every single one of them was a disposable workhorse that provided for the entire family, and by that it kept him out of his children's lives often most of the time. And he was praised for that, and he wore that burden. He wore it proudly, and he wore that burden. And it made him happy, and it made the marriage last. The only way these marriages lasted is because the man said, yep, I am fodder. I am the workhorse.
Cannon fodder.
I am the cannon fodder. I'll stand in front of the bullet. I'll go down with the ship. I'll spend I'll work myself to death so that the rest of my family can survive. You know, so the concept of men stepping away from that role is fucking radical, very radical.
Well, what societies can we look at where it is a full-blown patriarchy? Where would you say Indonesia? Would you say
Not Indonesia, no way. Not
where would you say it's more of a? I'm sorry, not a patriarchy, but a matriarchy, where women are in control outside of the Western country.
Well, first of all, you got to define patriarchy, and originally patriarchy, which comes from padre or the father, patriarchy just meant that the man is the head of the household, of the individual household. It wasn't a term that was applied loosely and blanketed over an entire system of society.
Mhm.
It was a very small system of men being the head of a household and a family. Being that head of the household and the family was the only privilege a man had by being a disposable workhorse.
Right, being the head of the house. Right?
Yes. So by taking the role and going, okay, I submit to my family, my children, and my wife, I will be the disposable workhorse. But
Mhm.
I am the king of this castle. That was the trade-off. Okay, and then that's what we call that's what a patriarchy is. A patriarchy is, in a small system, the man is a disposable workhorse, yet because of that sacrifice, he's granted the privilege of being the king of that system, the head of that system. Okay, that was what a patriarchy was. Now, if you try to apply that on a level of an entire culture or a political system, it doesn't exist. It's never existed over an entire political system, as far as I'm concerned. Culturally, maybe if you have that ideology within a culture, that means all the families within that culture, within that society, follow that patriarchal method. Okay, you could say maybe a culture is patriarchal. But only if the man is a disposable workhorse, and at the same time has the privilege of being the head of his individual castle. That's the only time a true patriarchy exists.
Okay.
Now, matriarchy.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I don't know if a matriarchal culture could exist that parallels the definition of a patriarchy, because let's say that a matriarchy, by definition, is a parallel of a patriarchy. Then that would mean that the woman would be the disposable workhorse, and for her role, and for her being in that role, she would be granted the privilege of being head of the household. But I don't know if you can define matriarchy like that. Maybe a matriarchy something completely different? Is a matriarchy one where the man maintains his role as disposable workhorse, but doesn't get the privilege of head of the household? Is that a matriarchy?
Yeah, that sounds more like a matriarchy.
Well, then we're living in one right now, man, in the Western world.
Well, I bring it up because I point to Vietnam as a good example of a matriarchy where the women seem to be much more in control of everything. Now, mind you, it's a communist country. And I think that goes hand in hand, that feminism, communism, and for that matter, a non-belief system. I point to Vietnam, where what I mean by Vietnam is that the women are in charge. And the way that they're in charge is they get what they want through sex. But they actually have sex to get what they want. So they dominate the men by having sex with them. Mm-hmm. And during the Vietnam War, the men were completely disposable. Mm-hmm. And that the men, for the most part in Vietnam, are usually drunk. They just lay around. They don't really work. They don't really do much. And the women tend to do most of the work. They're the ones in the rice fields doing all the work and things like that. And for the most part, Cambodia is somewhat the same way, where the men act more like lions, where they kind of just sit around and have the women do everything. But when there's a threat, an external threat, the men step up their game and protect the homeland.
Well, I've seen that system of culture in Indonesia as well, where the men, especially Bali's very reminiscent of that, where the men kind of tend to laze around a little bit more, but they are still the one they're still going to be the one that's at spear point, that's going to get stabbed, that's going to get shot, that's going to go to war, that's going to die violently, and they're still the one that in the end is going to pave the road. They're still going to do the heavy lifting. I mean, women are active in that kind of culture, but the men are still doing the heavy lifting.
Well, in Vietnam, it was the Vietnamese women who fought off the Chinese in the north during the Third Sino War. Oh, yeah. Because the men were too busy fighting. They invaded Cambodia. The Chinese were like, oh, this is a great opportunity for us to invade Vietnam because all the big divisions for the NVA are on the offense going into Cambodia. The Chinese didn't realize that the Vietnamese women were actually capable fighters and fought off the Chinese army.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see that in some societies. It's very rare. But one thing that Rico says is that even in the patriarchy, women pull the strings. But that's my point. In order for a patriarchy to exist, men must be disposable workhorses, or there is no patriarchy. They have to. I mean, this feminist socialist idea that the patriarchy is oppressive of women is absolute bullshit. Because the woman is not disposable. She's not a workhorse within a patriarchy. The only privilege a man had in a patriarchy was being the head of his individual household. In other words, if he said to the woman, stand the fuck up or sit the fuck down, she did. That's basically as far as his power was concerned. I mean, a patriarchy, and I wonder, because a patriarchy on that level that's fawned over by larger states, because larger states can't exist without men being disposable. So I don't even know what kind of a state a so-called matriarchy would even create. I don't think it would function.
Well, again, we're looking at it, and it's a societal collapse.
Yeah, it doesn't function, man. It doesn't fucking function.
And I repeat the same. I'll repeat it, and I'll keep repeating it on every live stream with you. We're living, men and women, we're living in the first time in the past 3,000 or 4,000 years a situation where there's a breakdown in the fundamental institution of marriage. We have never seen this before, and we're going to see why it's been in place for so long.
I honestly think that in a patriarchy as I've defined it, I think the only way it can only function under a limited state, under very limited state control. Number one, and as that functions, if you have limited state control under a traditional patriarchy, what that means is, yes, the man is disposable and he's the workhorse, but he does have the final say in anything that happens within his, like, let's say, his community, his household. Under that system, I think men are safer because there's less of a chance that you're going to go to war. There's less of a chance for things to devolve into violence. But
right.
That's not what we have. What we have is we have an exploitation of it's the illusion of patriarchy. But what it is men are still fodder, but they are not allowed to have any say within the community, a final say in the community or the household, and they all have to answer to a large state-controlled government,
which acts as the father now.
Which acts as the master patriarch. Yes. Yeah. So you're still fodder as a man in our society, in our, I don't know, our feminist kind of centric society, but you're not the daddy anymore.
Unbelievable. I just pulled up an article. Do you know about this whole thing? H&M closes stores in South Africa amid protest over monkey shirt. Do you know about this?
No. What is it?
Apparently, they were doing a commercial for H&M, and it was a little black kid that had a shirt that said "Coolest monkey in the jungle."
No, what? What?
Yeah, you gotta look it up. Monkey image featuring black child.
Wait. Okay, repeat that again.
H&M put out a advertisement for a sweatshirt that says "Coolest monkey in the jungle," and they had a little black boy wear the T-shirt or the sweatshirt.
Wait, okay, so it wouldn't have been controversial if it was a white guy wearing it.
Correct.
Okay.
And in South Africa, they ransacked all the H&M stores and they rioted and shit over it.
Jesus Christ. Yes, Wine Dog's right. The current system we live under is sort of the pseudo or faux patriarchy, and we have the worst of both worlds. If you're a man in Western culture, you have the worst of both worlds because you are not only are you the disposable workhorse, but that role is no longer a choice. It is given to you at gunpoint in our society. And not only is it given to you at gunpoint, but you do not reap any benefits from that role. You no longer have a say in your community, in your household, nothing. It's forced slavery, man. It's fucking forced slavery. Except not of any particular race, but of an entire gender, of the male gender. If you want my opinion of a culture that exists today that might be closer to, if you get into Asian cultures, yeah, I'd say you get a little bit closer to a lot of Southeast Asian cultures of kind of a traditional patriarchy. Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, a lot of the Muslim countries, and that's changing very quickly.
Well, they're changing because they've taken on the World Bank.
Yeah.
And they've been enslaved by Western monetary policies, and what comes with that is the agenda. That, okay, you want this loan, you want your roads built, you need money, you're in debt. Well, you have to free your women, and you have to give them rights and what have you, and give them contraception.
Yeah. Well, you cannot have what is being called you can't have overseeing state government control. You can't have the state as an overseer, as a huge Papa Daddy government, world government. You can't have it unless it's on the broken back of men who have to be at gunpoint, forced to be disposable workhorses. You can't. It's like it would be like the Roman Empire would never existed without a military, and that military was made of men. And those men, if they weren't forced into it, they were conditioned into being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need the system that they're looking for is, again, it's just a form of slavery where men are the slaves. You can't have a world government unless you enslave men. Right, and you don't. I mean, we're basically doing it at gunpoint, metaphorically, to men in the West, but we're not doing it with threats of death. Okay, we haven't got to that yet. We're not putting men to death for not paying child support, but we are putting them in prison. Right?
No, I would say they're probably getting killed too.
Well, they're killing themselves. A lot of men are killing themselves. So men are. Now, this goes back to that a long time ago. I made a couple videos called "Men Are the Nigger of the World," and it's never been more true. Unfortunately, those videos can no longer be viewed because that statement is a little too controversial. Although John Lennon did write a top 10 hit called "Women Is the Nigger of the World," but that's another story.
Well, what was that song about?
You never heard which "Woman Is the Nigger of the World"?
No, I think John Lennon was
he was
not
a cock, an absolute cock.
Yeah, he was, and he was not a nice person. Not a nice person.
Look, he wrote a song called "Woman Is the Nigger of the World." I can't remember which album it was on, but you got to remember, as a kid growing up, I loved John Lennon. I was a big fan of his. I loved his music, and then I grew up, and I listened to. There's a song he has called "Women Is the Nigger of the World," and that's why I made this 2-part series called "Man Is the Nigger of the World," which no one will see anymore because YouTube deleted it. And I even made my own song of the same version. Instead of women, I changed it to men, because all Lennon was singing about was, oh, women, they get it. So it was just complete feminist propaganda, the lyrics. I mean, imagine it, and that's the words. Pretty sad.
Well, he married his stalker. Yoko Ono was his stalker. And a lot of people think he wasn't really the driving force behind the Beatles, but it was more George Harrison and Paul McCartney. I mean, if you look at John Lennon's career after the Beatles, it really wasn't as good as Paul McCartney's,
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, but getting back to what we were talking about, patriarchy and stuff, that's why I went into men is the nigger, because men are the niggers of the world. They have to be. Men have to be the niggers, or this whole plan of this sort of state-controlled world system, it can't happen. Okay, Rome was built on the backs of disposable men. If you don't have it, you have no Rome. It's that simple. And yes, like I said, they're not. Jonathan Hardy is here actually, and John the other. He was on for the first hour and a half, but he had to go. So if you want to hear what he had to say, you'll have to listen to the chat later. But yeah, they're not killing us. They're not putting us in front of a firing squad for not, you know.
The gas chambers are coming. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Well, why did that guy kill John Lennon in the first place? Was it because John Lennon was being a hypocrite and that's why he blew him away? So I've read that also.
Oh, I have no idea, man. I mean, again, any kind of life that these celebrities live, their lives and their deaths, like, who are we to say what really happens? Like, nobody knows, man. That's their game.
Right, we can only comment on what we see. It's, again, we don't know what's going on in the locker room during a football game or prior to a football game. We don't know what their regimen is as far as practicing. We don't know. We can only comment after the fact.
Yeah, we can only comment.
Yeah,
after they're on stage. We're just the audience, man. We don't fucking know. We don't know. We don't know what the actors are what's going through their minds and then their private lives before they hit the stage. You know, we don't know that shit.
No, we don't.
No.
So it's really hard, and the only thing we can do is we can measure what is taking place, and we can come up with our own hypothesis on what it is that's going on, where we're going, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But this actually leads into a little bit of 9/11. If you really think about it, we really don't know what took place that day. There's so many conspiracy theories. Was it a nuclear bomb underneath the World Trade Center? Was there anybody on the airplanes? What was it? Weather manipulation? There's a lot of. I heard one woman, some scientists, say that was weather manipulation because there was a hurricane that day, and then there was a wrong magnetic field, and there's so much shit going on. And when it comes to 9/11, I boil it down to this: don't focus on how the towers came down. Don't focus on that. Focus on who benefits.
Absolutely.
That's the important thing that you have to realize.
Yeah. I mean, like I was talking about before, you know, a crime has been committed, a murder has been committed, you know what it is. Just accept the fact that it's been committed. Finding out the motivation and the who and why, that's a whole other can of worms, man. You know, you can't, and like I said, you use common sense and use the litmus test of what's the most popular opinion. This is okay. I'm going to go as far away from that as I can. What's the majority believe? That okay. Then I'm gonna search for the truth in the complete opposite direction of it, and you're gonna have better success.
Well, this ties into that article I sent you a couple of weeks ago. That was in my local paper. Is that how conspiracy talk is dangerous? And deep state talk is dangerous.
Yes.
And they had a picture of Adolf Hitler as the reason why you can't have deep state talk.
Yeah.
And they were watching a video. Forgot the video they were watching. Give me a second here, while you talk. Let me pull this up.
Okay. Nick was talking about an article about it's dangerous. They don't want you to. Deep state talk is dangerous. Like, don't if we have a society or a community that is deep state talk becomes sort of the norm, it's dangerous. Which of course it's the absolute.
Here it is. U.S. needs to fear deep state talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what were they reading? Watching? So I pro-Nazi. I paused. Yeah, give me a second. Hitler was a peaceful man who forced into fighting the smeared by liberal historians after his deaths. The video counter read over 2 million views, 7,000 likes, 2,000 dislikes. And people were commenting that it was very educational, eye-opening piece of history I did not know much about, now explained. So again, it was a different narrative about Adolf Hitler, and that how this is dangerous, talking about these concepts.
Yeah. Look, Nick, I'm gonna have to shut it down. I'm getting tired.
Yep. All right.
We've been doing 3.5 hours.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah. look, guys, we'll be back again next week. Maybe it'll just be me and Nick, and Jonathan Hardy's in the chats. Maybe we can get him on, and we can do a little bit more 9/11 discussion if you guys are interested. Of course, we'll definitely put in some MGTOW content always.
Yeah, we'll do 9/11 next week because that'll eat up quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And as a New Yorker, I got plenty of stories.
There you go. We got a guy from New York that's got a lot of stuff to say about 9/11. So we'll definitely throw that in there, and we'll definitely bring in more MGTOW stuff as usual. And yes, guys, I will try to work on getting some more guests on. We'll probably have John the Other sometime down the line in the future.
Yeah, don't worry, Swine Dog. We'll get to the wreckage in Pennsylvania. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Save it for next week.
We'll save that for
I
next week.
advise Rye Dawson's War is Always by Deception. That is the best 9/11 documentary ever.
Okay. Great.
All right? All right. Good night,
Okay,
everybody.
guys. Good night. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. If you want to contact me, you can always contact me on my Twitter, but at the moment I'm banned until next Wednesday. So if you have anything you want to talk about, put it there.
We got to cover them while you're banned also.
Yeah, we'll cover on why I'm banned. We'll bring that up next week once the ban has been lifted. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Nick, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, good night, everybody. Peace.
Good night.